Okay, just a couple minutes late, we will convene our meeting of the Sanitary District Number 2, a subsidiary district of the town of Corte Madera. We're doing this to accommodate a couple of different schedules tonight. So if we can have a roll call, please.
Board Member Andrews,
Present.
Board Member Beckman.
Here.
Board Member Casissa.
Here.
Vice President Thomas. Here. President Ravazio.
Here, and if you could please join me in a salute to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. That brings us to open time for public comment. And just because this is normally the time that our council meeting starts, if you are here to provide open time public comment to the council, you may also do that now. You don't have to wait for this meeting to end and the next meeting to start. So that being said, is there anyone who would like to address either the council or the Sanitary District 2 Board? Yes, sir.
Don Wilberg, 13 Seminole. And I actually would like to address both the sanitary district and the council. One, finally got a phone call and
Could I ask you just to speak a little more closely into the microphone if you can?
I'll get down closer. I was treated very nicely. Okay. But afterwards I'm going, but I still had some questions. And so, there were four things. One is that, my house was built in 56. And now that means that, we had clay tile there for 55 years. And then 15 years now we've had the state of the art, best stuff going into the sewer. So we have a much better situation. Then the next thing was, I've talked to engineers over the years, and settlement, and this was one of the issues that came up in my conversation, was settlement was a problem and we had to resolve that. And so in talking with engineers, settlement happens, 90% of it, approximately 90% of the settlement happens within the first 10 to 20 years, okay? By the time you get to 50, there's no settlement left. Well, we're at 70 years right now, okay? So why would there be settlement issues? Number three, this was an issue with the state, and so we're being told by the state that we've got to fix this. I had another thing in here too, but I can't remember it exactly. But number four, the thing that really sort of bothers me a little bit is now I need to have somebody come out and scope the line. This is what I'm being told I have to do. And if I'm the guy who comes out and scopes this pipe, is it my best interest to find a problem in any little problem in there that might not be a problem for 20 or 30 years down the road? I mean, what we have is much better than those old clay pipes, and we never had a problem there. How do I trust these people? How do I know it's not a scam? I mean, I see the scoping and all this. It just doesn't feel good. Okay. Anyway, those are my comments from what's going on here. Okay. So my second issue, can I do this or not?
Okay, so are you requesting an additional 3 minutes, 3 minutes for the council and another for the sanitary district? May I permit that? I think I can. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So, how you pay people will ultimately influence what they produce. All right. So there's a guy named Jack Walsh, who was the CEO of General Electric. So he got paid a bonus if the price of the stock went up. All right. So he had this idea. He said, okay, we're going to go out and borrow some money. We're going to buy a company. And sure enough, the value of the stock went up. Okay. Well, that worked. So let's buy another company and let's buy another company. And so ultimately, Jack Welch makes millions and millions of dollars, and the price of the stock goes way up. But then all of a sudden, they bought all these disparate companies and they didn't really match and they didn't really work together. So the company starts backsliding. They had to sell this company and sell this, and now it's back down. The stockholders lost bazillions. Jack Welch made all kinds of money. Okay. So here's a crazy idea. If we wanted to do something with these shopping centers and really improve them, all right, by bringing in more business, we've got more tax money here, right? So what if the town manager, the planning director, and maybe the head of the building department get paid a bonus for the increase in taxes that come into the town? Okay, not by raising the rates, but by there's more business, okay, in the town. Would they now be possibilitizers and going, oh, well, if I worked with the developer, if I worked with the owner, well, here's a crazy idea, here's this, here's that? Or would they make restrictions and say, okay, well, you can't do this, okay? I think they would be much more positive in terms of what can we make happen? Or another small little idea, what if we've got thousands of mines here in the town? What if we were to pay anybody who came in to a series of public meetings, the developer comes in and says, oh, that's a great idea, and incorporates it in their plan, and we pay those people for that idea? Would we have public meetings that were really positive and possibilitizing, or would we have a typical public meeting where we were negative and restrictive and, oh, I don't want that, I don't want this kind of a thing? Just some thinking for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
that.
your time. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to approach the microphone for your open time contributions? Seeing none, is there anyone on
Yes.
line?
We have a hand raised from Roy Wolford.
Hello, Mr. Wolford, you may go ahead.
Good evening. I'm making a statement of concern regarding MCE representation and transparency. The Marin IJ published 4 articles, Friction at MCE, this is part 1 through 4. They were dated October 26th through the 31st of this year. Did you read them? I hope so. They reveal the organizational dysfunction and lack of transparency at MCE regarding what is being provided to the MCE customer. The customers are not receiving anywhere close to the 50 to 60% or 100% of the 2 green energy programs the MCE staff, board, and website deceptively depict as being provided. In 2024, California's total electricity generation in gigawatt hours from solar and wind was 21.3% and 11.9% respectively. That's nowhere close to even 50%. It is deeply troubling that the council's MCE representative appears to be allowing personal ideology to obstruct the transparency and accountability expected of their role. Constituents deserve clear disclosure regarding MCE's deliverables, as well as honest communication about the financial and organizational challenges facing this quasi-governmental entity. The current approach, marked by bureaucratic inertia and a lack of constructive engagement, undermines public trust and impedes meaningful oversight. In closing, Please read the 4 articles. You'll even see a quote in part 3 made by our mayor.
Thank you very much, Roy. I would like to say that I did read those articles, and the quote by me was actually correct, but it was not at that meeting and not in that conversation. So I'm not sure how it appeared in that particular story, but even the newspaper occasionally gets the details a little wrong. So, okay, is there anyone else waiting to speak?
No other hands raised from attendees and no emailed public comment for open time for the sanitary district.
Okay, so we will move on then to item 4, since there are no presentations. Item 3, that takes us to the consent calendar. These are items that have been either previously discussed or are felt to not need any further discussion, but anyone may remove an item from the list to be talked about individually. Is there anyone on the council, staff, or in the public who would like to remove any one of these items? This is sewer district consent calendar, correct? Not the council. We're doing sewer district first tonight. Okay, not seeing any. Is there a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to move the SD to consent calendar.
And just to confirm, we didn't receive any public comment for the consent calendar for the sanitary district. Neither did we get any requests for removal of any items. I'll go ahead and call the vote. Board Member Andrews,
Yes.
Board Member Beckman,
Yes.
Board Member Casissa.
Yes.
Vice President Thomas,
Yes.
President Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you. And we have no public hearings, but our first business item, 6A, is to receive a presentation from the San Rafael Sanitation District, SRSD Board Chair Kate Cullen and Paul Kazi of Kazi Consulting on the proposed management and operations service agreement between SRSD and the Central Marin Sanitation District, and discuss and provide direction and/or comments on the proposed agreement. So do we first have a staff report or?
Thank you, President Ravazio. So there isn't really a detailed staff report for this item. I think the actual title of the agenda item explains what we're here to do tonight. This is really an opportunity for the board to get some more information about this proposed agreement between SRSD and CMSA. Obviously, board member Beckman is our CMSA representative, or the board's representative on the CMSA board. And so I think we'll have an opportunity during the discussion to talk to this issue as well. And so currently there is an agreement that is coming to the CMSA board. This is an opportunity for the board just to get some more information, learn more about it. And then ultimately, if there's any direction or action that the board wants to take or comment on the draft agreement, this is an opportunity to do so that I think board member Beckman can take that with him as this agreement moves forward.
So just to clarify, it's a proposed agreement and we are looking at whether or not we agree
And
to
draft
this agreement.
at this point in time, but it's an important opportunity, I think, for the board to hear from board president of CMSA, Kate Cullen, and then there'll be discussion afterwards as well. And then if we have public comment as well. And we did, for the record, we did receive also a letter from RVSD, Ross Valley Sanitary District, on this item that's included in your packet as well.
Okay. So Kate, would you like to take center stage here?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm one of these. I am not going to sit there. So when I do slides, do you want me to have a clicker? Okay. So let me introduce myself. My name is Kate Cullen. I am the mayor of San Rafael, and one of the perks of being the elected mayor of San Rafael is I'm also the chair of the San Rafael Sanitation District. So I first joined the city council in 2013, and I became mayor in 2020. So relatively new, I think, in terms of the industry, although I have been chair, as I've just indicated, for the last 5 years. And I really welcome this opportunity to have the conversation and to present in front of you as fellow policymakers. When we're talking about agreements, There's a lot of staff work and there's a lot of legal work. So my goal this evening is to really talk about it from a policy broad level. And if there are any specifics, I am joined by Paul Kazi of Paul Kazi Consulting, and he can talk about the specifics as we have been using consultants to do this work. So what I have found in this space, and for folks that are here in the room or folks that are watching, most people don't really pay attention to their wastewater. They just don't. And so it really is an opportunity to look at the industry as a whole. And because, and I'll get into this, you had said, City Manager Wolf, that I'm the president of CMSA. It's actually of the San Rafael Sanitation District. CMSA, which I'll get into, is a JPA, but it has special districts. And we already know that when people say special districts, very different from when you're sitting in the seat as a Corte Madera Town Council. People know what that is, but when you get to districts, it's not as clear. So with that, let's go ahead and look at these slides that I've put together. So tonight's presentation, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I really need to get a new prescription in my eyes. So I'm going to walk over here a little bit. So I'm just going to talk about an overview of the wastewater agency, why San Rafael Sanitation District is interested in this, and then talk about how this actually doesn't affect the operations and the finances of SD2. Okay, hopefully the other ones have bigger font. Next slide. So understanding, again, we're starting at the 30,000 foot level, which is always a good place to start before we get really granular. So Marin County is unique in that it's very fragmented. In a moment, I will show you a slide on that. Very different than other systems in other counties in the Bay Area. We have 17 separate agencies for a population of over 250,000. So this includes all the different city departments and the special districts. So many were formed as independently years ago. And so what we're trying to do in terms of good governance and how do we meet the needs of today's ratepayers, we're looking at, are there ways that we should be changing some of this structure? And that's what San Rafael is looking at. Next slide, please. So I love graphs because it just, what is it? Picture is 1,000 words. On the left, that is how many sanitation districts that we have and agencies in Marin compared to Santa Cruz, Solano, San Mateo, and Napa. Like, right there, it shows that we are ripe to be looking at how do we have either major consolidation, how do we start to have shared services, because we are out of alignment with what's going on in a lot of different counties. And these other counties have either were formed differently or they've already done the work that's being proposed here. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is not an idea that just came to San Rafael Sanitation District recently. This has a long discussion here in the county. On the left, you will see the dates of when these discussions started. So even back in 2007, Central Marin Sanitation Agency, which is the long word for CMSA, they hired an outside consultant to look exactly at kind of a bigger picture, not what we're discussing here tonight, but consolidation. And the districts were interested in it, and they got to the point where it looked like it might go forward. And you'll see in the sentence there, at the Ross Valley Sanitation District decided that they did not want to participate. So that was back in 2007. So again, it just shows the complexity of when you're trying to look at different types of governance structure. So then in 2010, there's been 2 grand jury reports, 2010 and 2018. And I love the grand jury because they are an outside independent agency. I'm sorry, I have to walk over here because I can't read the slide. And really looking at it, asking the hard questions. So in 2010, they looked very specifically at Ross Valley. And then in 2018, again, they were talking about the consolidation. In between both of those, LAFCO, Marin LAFCO, which is the organization that looks at districts, as it were. So 2017, they also recommended consolidations of the sanitation district. And most recently, they looked at it in 2024, saying this is something that's worthwhile pursuing. I bring that up because it shows that when you're looking at good government, it's not just depending on the districts or the people in the seats now. It's actually looking at what are the regional agencies and the regional watchdogs, as it were, are looking at and what are the recommendations. So since 2007 to now, I think my math is right, nearly 2 decades that this conversation's been going on. Next slide, please. So there's always, why are you doing this? And I'm going to talk very, not granularly, but more specifically about San Rafael Sanitation District. But before I do that, I want to talk about just in general, why do agencies even talk about consolidations or having shared services? Well, ultimately, what we want is we want to have, in addition to good governance, we want to save our ratepayers money. We want to be efficient. This is a graph that I pulled directly from the 2018 Marin Grand Jury report. And it makes the case, and you can go find the report online and read it. It is fantastic reading for understanding the context here in Marin County. They utilized the Central Marin Police Agency as a comparable agency or a comparable industry, as it were, to look at savings over the years. So again, this is demonstrating that when you are able to have agencies brought together or districts brought together, there is a savings to the ratepayers, which I think all of us are taxpayers, all of us are ratepayers in our respective places where we live. These are the kind of things that we like to see. Okay, next slide, please. So what is CMSA? As I said, it's a Central Marin Sanitation Agency. On the right is a graph. The green is San Rafael, the red is Ross Valley, and the blue is UWall, the Sanitation District 2. This joint power authority was formed in 1979, a very long time ago. I don't think any of us were sitting in these chairs in 1979. So it's been in practice for a long time, and it's been a structure that has weathered a lot of things that have occurred in those decades. Next slide, please. So this graph basically compares San Rafael Sanitation District, Ross Valley Sanitary District, Sanitation District 2, and what this demonstrates is both miles of pipe, number of pump stations, number of ratepayers, base cost. And the point of this slide is to show that JPAs often have districts that are not identical. That is one reason why you form a JPA, is to come together and to have the efficiencies of coming together, even though everyone's district is composed differently. Next slide. So how does a JPA work? Sorry, I'm over here. So just as it says up here, it's a legal entity. It's a very specific mechanism for bringing together different districts. They allow the districts to come together, pool resources. Ultimately, there is already savings being done. There's best practices that happen for all of the districts. You get more regional services. So what it means specifically for CMSA, they're the 3 member agencies. You just saw the map of the 3 of them. Each of them appoint a commissioner to the CMSA board. And the thing that's very important is that this proposed agreement, which I'll be going through, it doesn't change the JPA. It doesn't change the fact that, I was going to say Commissioner, Director Beckman will continue to be your representative. And it's truly reassigning operational responsibilities, which is consistent with a JPA purpose. Okay, next slide. So why does this matter? Why is San Rafael Sanitation District having this conversation in the context I've just created? So San Rafael, and as I mentioned on that side-by-side slide, we're all set up a little differently. Our district is set up differently in that our board is comprised of 2 members of the San Rafael City Council. I already told you I get the perk because I'm the mayor. And then I have another council member that joins me. And then I have 1 county supervisor. So, okay, it's a little strange structure. So my board is 3 people. And so that, again, and it's just showing that they're all set up really differently from each other. The other thing that's interesting, we're tied in with the county and we're tied in with the city. Specifically, our labor agreements must align with the labor agreements at the city of San Rafael. What that has resulted in is non-competitive salaries for our engineers and for our employees because they're tied to the city structure. And you all know when you have the labor groups, you have the different tiers. And so what's happened, we've really, really struggled at San Rafael Sanitation District to attract and retain employees. It has been very, very difficult because our salaries are too low. And the only way to actually address that issue is, and I'll just be frank, is we need to divorce ourselves from the city of San Rafael. So I'm wearing two hats all the time, but as long as we are restricted to the city, it is going to be problematic. So the ways that you can divorce is you can either do a horizontal integration where San Rafael Sanitation District could look at other wastewater conveyance providers and join with them, or horizontal, which is with Central Marin CMSA. So what we're talking about is aligning horizontally. Also in San Rafael, this will be better for ratepayers, streamlined services. I've already really talked about that. And of course, it is in alignment with what has been said by the grand jury, by LAFCO, by generally good governance in the sanitation districts throughout the counties in the Bay Area. Next slide, please. So how did we get here? How did we get here? So I talked about the CMSA report again, well before I was board chair, talking about how we should be looking at consolidation. So when I became chair in 2020, and remember, there was some other stuff going on, pandemic. So it did take me a little bit to get involved and figuring out what's going on with the sanitation district. So we went ahead and we had an independent outside consultant look and review the San Rafael Sanitation District, seeing if there's anything that we should be doing. The previous chair had been there for 8 or 9 years and there hadn't been any structural changes. So in that report, we realized that this issue with retaining our employees was not going to go away and was only going to get worse. So in 2023, we had several public study sessions. We had a board retreat. We looked at 9 options. So this is not we decided a couple months ago when we put together agreement. We've been working on this now. We're almost to the end of 2025, almost 2 years. So came to CMSA and was thrilled that CMSA was willing to put together an ad hoc committee. So thank you to all of those that's been on that ad hoc committee that added extra meetings. And that ad hoc committee had participation from all 3 districts. We're in the room when those ad hoc conversations were taking place. And then in this past year, we had a RSG, a consultant that looks at these types of deals. And again, these types of proposed agreements, and they were independent. To me, it was always really important that we not get caught up in the past and that we bring in outside experts who can help us broaden our horizons and to really think, how can we achieve the objectives that San Rafael Sanitation District needs to achieve within the current CMSA JPA. Okay, next slide. So the outside experts, I'm delighted that Paul is here, because if you have any really burning questions beyond the slides, I'm a policymaker, right? I understand systems. I understand how to make things happen. I understand good governance. I understand how to save our ratepayers money. When we get down into the agreement, if you have anything burning, Paul will answer that. In addition, I mentioned earlier that it was very important to the other districts, both Ross Valley as well as SD2, that we have outside consultants. So 2 of them came in. One talked about, again, governance and financials. They looked at all the districts. They interviewed us. They had recommendations. And then there was yet another request, I think it was by Ross Valley, to have additional specialists around employee benefits. Absolutely. We want to have the very best agreement. So, of course, San Rafael was willing to pay for those extra consulting costs. And I think Paul can always speak to the amount of outside consultants that we have brought in already in order to have this operational agreement that is almost there, hopefully at the finish line. So I do want to mention I do want to just touch briefly on the concept of risk, which is probably a very long esoteric conversation we could have. But what I am going to say, that is why I really leaned on the 2018 grand jury report. That's why I talked about the Central Marin Police Agency. We understand that when you're altering even a little bit of a structure, They're going to be trade-offs. And what we're looking at is what is the bigger picture of what we're trying to do, knowing that what we're talking about has been done throughout the Bay Area. And so having outside experts was really, really important to put everyone's mind at ease and to build confidence in the proposed agreement. Next slide, please. So what is this agreement? It started out at 7 pages because you know me, I want to like get to the key stuff, don't want to have a lot of extra. It's now at 24, 25. So again, San Rafael is willing, we are willing to have the nth detail, every extra I, extra T, extra, in order to have all the districts feel comfortable with what's being proposed. So at the core of it, the operations will be managed by CMSA. That's the core of it. The SRSD board will still meet once or twice a year to review the budget and to have CMSA to approve the budget and to follow through on what CMSA will be doing. There are no other cost impacts to the JPA members. That's in the agreement. SRSD fully reimburses. That's again, but I think it's been figured out to the penny. And there's not a change in the structure. And I do realize, and I have another slide about this, when we start to talk about changes, it's easy to think, and it makes sense to think, well, how's that going to affect us? Are we going to have to change too? No, this actually has nothing to do with your structure. Of course, if we end up doing this and it ends up working beautifully, which I think it might, that's a different story that your board would talk about years and years from now. But what's being presented here today, there's no changes. And then finally, there's no change on voting or member independence. So it's not changing the representation. All of that is staying the same. Okay, next slide. So this was drafted. So this agreement, how did we get here? There has been a lot of legal input from the lawyers from each district as well as CMSA. So the lawyers have had a lot of time to work on it. I think we're on our 11th iteration. Is that correct? So that means every iteration, the lawyers got to get in there and continue to evolve it. And as I said, we're getting close if we're not almost already there. We talked about having consultants who had no stake in it. It talks about governance and transition, indemnification. And there has been so much feedback. And we are so thankful to all the lawyers that have been talking about it. And just as an aside, these agreements are similar to ones that our lawyers do. So SD2 does with CMSA, or SRSD already does with CMSA. And I think you already have a similar agreement around the pump stations that SD2 has. So you already have an agreement. It's not exactly like it, but having these separate agreements isn't unusual. What is unusual, we have a lot more information in the one that's being presented to you. So not in your current agreement, but again, it's something to pay attention to as we start to have lots of details in this proposed agreement. Will we look at future agreements across the board differently? I don't know. But it's, again, just putting it in the context of the work that we're doing. Next slide, please. Okay, we got to stay the course. So Ross Valley, I know that they sent a letter. I know that their representatives in here more than once, they have signaled potential legal opposition to the agreement. And I am grateful that they have participated in the ad hoc committee. So they have been at the table. Their lawyer has been weighing in on the agreement for a year and a half. So signaling legal opposition is it dismaying, to say the least. One thing we never, ever want to see is a headline above the fold of litigation around the sanitation districts. I think that's I think it reflects poorly on all of us. And I know it won't get there because Ross Valley has been willing to participate. Their lawyers has been willing to put information into the agreement. So we are hopeful that where it is, we will be able to go forward. We have been transparent. There's been a public process. And it really shows to all the ratepayers and to anyone who watches this meeting back that having collaboration and being able to look at the JPA and evolve the structure to meet today's needs is exactly why us as policymakers are in the seats that we're in. Okay, next slide. I think I'm almost done. Oh, questions. I had another slide on there on JPA. I don't know where it went. So that must have been, I had a long council meeting last night. So somehow that other slide, who knows where it went, but it's not there. And it was basically just talking about how you have the JPA structure and how the operational agreement is a version of that. I don't know where it went, but that's okay. We can always speak to that. So with that, as your Chair Ravazio, I turn it back to you.
I think I'm called a president
Are
here.
you the president? Okay.
I like that one a lot.
You're the president and I'm a chair. See, another way that the districts are different. Go figure. I'm going to get that president title.
Okay, Kate, thanks so much for coming
Welcome.
in and explaining it all to us in such good detail. So council questions, just questions, no comments at this point? Question for Kate? Kate, you can stay up at the mic if you want. These are going to be for you, I think.
Oh, or for Paul.
Let me understand what I think the essence of this agreement is. In effect, San Rafael's going to terminate all its existing sewer workers, and CMSA is going to hire them, and then CMSA will then bill San Rafael for the cost of their working for you. In terms of pension, you're in the San Rafael's in the Marin pension system, CMSA's and CalPERS. Is that going to cause any issues?
No, because we know that the labor groups work so well together and the pension systems work so well together. So I say that only half in jest. So they do have different pension systems, and please, Paul, jump in if I don't get the whole answer. There are examples of employees coming over from other agencies. So Marin Transit had a similar situation, so it has been done. There have been conversations with both MSARA as well as with CalPERS. So we will ensure that our employees that will then be CMSA employees will be whole, and it won't have any detrimental effect on the CMSA existing employees.
My name's Paul Causey, and I'm with Causey Consulting. We have had direct conversations several times with MSARA. We've had conversations with PERS directly to understand the impacts from those two agencies. The agreement does speak to how, though, the unfunded liability associated with MSARA has to be taken care of before the effective date of the agreement. And San Rafael has agreed to take care of that unfunded liability and anything going forward beyond that. So that's based on our conversations with them. And there are certain things, while this agreement will be approved, we hope, but from the approval date, there's also a period of time when they have to do several things in order to get to the point where the employees could come in. CMSA has to look through and evaluate the employees. They have to offer them employment agreements. They have to deal with the unfunded liability, and we have to get a place for them to live over there at CMSA. And so they're probably going to be 6 to 9 months from the date this agreement hopefully is approved to when the date takes place, which will then bring all of the employees into CMSA's service. Does that help?
So the employees will go from the Marin system to the CalPERS system?
That's correct.
And in terms of benefits to the individual employee, would he be better off if he had always been in CalPERS or always been in the Marin system?
I'm an employee who's been in both. I was in the Contra Costa retirement system, also in PERS, and they link together as long as the employees let the earlier in retirement system know, and then everything passes through, and there's a reciprocity with the system, and so it should be seamless as long as they identify and notify MSARA that they have that they're going to be retiring under PERS. So it shouldn't be a problem. I get 2 paychecks or 2 retirement checks, and it works fine.
Any other questions from council?
If Rosie can go.
Yes. So is there any possibility that not all the employees will be employed by CMSA, not all of the San Rafael employees.
I think there's two answers to that. One is the employees have the right to stay at the city if they so wish. And CMSA has the authority to decide that if they feel the employees are not appropriately trained or something like that, they wouldn't hire them. That's the process they would go through in the 6 months before the effective date, so that CMSA has the right to say yes or no and offer an employment agreement. And the city, if the employee wants to stay there, then their normal bumping requirements at the city would have, and they would have to move into positions. Say if it was an engineer, they'd have to move into the engineering ranks, but those are taken care of by the existing memorandums of understanding with the employee groups, and that's how those would be handled. Right now, it's our understanding that all 17 employees are interested in going over because they're going to have a greater salary and probably a few better benefits, but they won't be able to get everything that they have right now. But the increased salary, I think, is really the driver for whether they would leave or not.
So they're interested, all 17 are interested in going over, but there's still not a guarantee that they will qualify to go over.
There's no guarantee. That's correct. Now, just for your information, in 1985, similar type of thing happened where San Rafael, when the CMSA plant opened up and was finally constructed, San Rafael had its own treatment plant and those employees came through. So it was very similar to that change in 1985 that we've gone through in the past. So we checked back to see how those worked, and now we're similar types of things that we've been asking questions about since we started this 2 years ago.
I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Fred.
Thanks. I have a couple for you. Good presentation, by the way. I'm just a firm believer nothing's 100% risk-free. So is there any, and again, I'm looking strictly from an SD2 standpoint. What's the risk to SD2, either from a liability, financial standpoint, or am I missing something else?
This is probably the strongest agreement that I've seen with regard to protection of the other member partners. As the mayor indicated, we started off with a very short 7-page agreement. It's now 25. And much of what's been added has to do with indemnification, protection for the other members associated with it. And San Rafael has agreed to pay any and every cost associated with this transition and for all costs associated with operating their system. It's somewhat similar to what you all have with your treatment or with your pump stations currently, but this agreement it has far more protections, I think, in it than that agreement with that you have with CMSA right now for your pump stations alone. And you have 20 or 22 pump stations, and San Rafael has 26 or 28, something like that. So that part of it's similar to what's been done with the SD2 agreement, but this agreement's far stronger than that agreement was, I believe. In my experience.
And the other question, I think you touched, I was going to ask you about protection and off ramps with the agreement. You may have touched upon protection, but maybe just hit upon that a little bit more. And if there's any off ramps, if something goes awry. And I think I read where it's a 2-year agreement, and then after that, it goes year to year, if I can remember.
That was the last version that I saw, yes. Originally, we had requested 5. But a year to year after 2 years, probably. The agreement also provides opportunities to look at the overhead rate, to look at those other kinds of things on an annual basis to determine whether they are meeting the criteria for unfunded issues. And I think it's got provisions in here that allow for CMSA to provide information relative to things that maybe don't go as well as maybe we had anticipated.
And then I know I think it's noted on one of the slides, there may be some legal opposition from Ross Valley. If there's any kind of legal action, will that filter down to SD2, or is SD2 protected and it's going to be more directed to CMSA?
Right now, the way the agreement is written, any dispute resolution would resolve and be paid for by SRSD. Current language has just been modified in this version 11. And San Rafael is hopefully going to agree to the fact that they have to pay for anything and everything associated with any issues relative to concerns by either RVSD or SD2.
Okay. And just one last question. What's the timing of all this? In other words, when does it go? I think tonight we're just providing direction, correct? does it have to come, I'm sorry, does it have to come back to our board for any type of approval, or we're just basically giving direction to Eli as a board member?
That's at the discretion of the board. If the board wants to take a vote on it, it can. If the board wants to simply provide direction, it can. Amy Ackerman, board counsel, I do have some comments that are, I just got an email from San Rafael's attorney making changes to the agreement that are different from what's being represented. So I can speak to that if people are interested, but I think there is a good faith effort to make this as strong as possible, but we're not. Unfortunately, I thought we were there, but this latest email indicates perhaps we're not.
Okay.
So
I guess I go back to the timing. It sounds that what's the timing? In other words, like CMSA board may have to be approved by our board.
My understanding is that the way the agreement's written, each board is provided 2 months to consider the agreement and to provide direction to their voting member at the CMSA board. And so you're hearing this tonight. One would hope that in December you can provide direction to your representative and that the other boards can also. And so that a final direction and final decision of moving forward would happen no later than the end of the year or the first part of January at the latest
Okay.
would be the hope.
It sounds like tonight we're just looking for feedback since it sounds like the agreement may not have been finalized. If there's new, okay, thanks. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate the
Sure.
answers.
No problem.
Can I ask a point of clarification on that last part? So are you saying once it's finalized and the draft has been sort of, there's no more drafts, then there's a 2-month window?
My understanding coming into tonight was that what you have is the draft that is to be approved or directed to your voting representative.
Okay.
And that we're at the point where these drafts have been going back and forth
Yes.
now for a year.
Understood.
And yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, it has. I've been involved in it. Okay. Okay. Bottom line is that this was to be a draft that the agencies look at and either comment on or provide. And then by the second board meeting, the final draft will be available to be voted on and provide direction to your representative. So the hope is that we can get this thing closed so that everybody has the final words. But there are
Okay.
tons of emails going back and forth on this thing right now.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay. Eli, do you have any questions?
I have been knee deep in this thing for more than a year, so no, I do not have any questions.
I just have one question about kind of worst case scenario regarding the Ross Valley position. I mean, if they're serious about litigation and they come after San Rafael and CMSA, how badly could that affect the operations? I mean,
Well-
what's the parameters there?
Not being an attorney, and I would never try to do that as a professional engineer, one assumes that they could stay the implementation, could stay the effectiveness for concerns that they have. You have a letter from them indicating what their concerns are. I think most of those have been answered, or all of them have been answered to my satisfaction. And I've done several of these over time. I've done consolidations right here in Marin County over time. And this, again, as I told you earlier, is the strongest agreement that I have seen for a consolidation in my 55-year experience, having been a manager and a city employee over the 55 years. So this one is, I think the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted pretty much.
So you think that in recent days, weeks, the Ross Valley concerns have been addressed?
I can't speak for Ross Valley. I think your letter would indicate that they are still concerned.
Okay.
And I'll just, to your point, and Paul did a great job talking about the costs, and it would not come down on ST2. But I want to be clear, that headline on the IJ, we're all in that headline because people do not understand CMSA, the different JPAs. And so again, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here and have the conversation to help the community understand the importance of what we're trying to do. But So I can't speak to that. I think financial and everything else, the agreement covers it, but there's also perception about governance as well. That would take a hit.
So there is a process though where the city of San Rafael will take or not take full responsibility for any costs or impacts of this lawsuit.
No,
If-
we
if
didn't
there
say
is
that.
no
We said that,
specific- so-
no, I think the agreement says that we absorb all the costs.
Okay, so that's the current agreement. That's
And
not
that's, and
something
that's
you're
not
waiving.
changing. That has been insistent, which, and because you asked this question, I will bring it up because there were issues in Ross Valley well over 2 decades ago with their general manager. This kind of agreement wasn't in place. There was a legal court case having to do with their general manager. That agreement, this agreement is so much stronger than that. That whole thing went down and neither of our districts had to pay fees or get caught up in that. So we've been here before, we've had this experience, and we have a track record in this JPA that when something went south 20 years, almost 20 years ago, we were protected by agreements that aren't nearly as strong as this one.
Just to be very clear, while SD2, the employees are hired by the city, they are a separate special district, just like yours is. And so, Madam Chair, you said the city of San Rafael. City of San Rafael has no responsibility in this agreement.
Oh, I meant
whatsoever.
San Rafael.
I know what you meant. I just
Sorry,
wanted to be
sorry, I
clear for the
misspoke.
other, for the public,
Thank
so
you.
that they didn't get any confusion with
Thank
regard
you.
to the city's responsibility. They have none here.
Okay, anybody else? Jim?
Yeah, this is to Attorney Ackerman. The person I talked with from Ross Valley, okay, was worried about liability, and the example they gave is, let's say there's a big sewer spill in San Rafael. CMSA gets hit with a big fine from the state. Who pays for it? And, you know, will the town of Corte Madera suddenly get a capital call to cover that?
So what we've done in this agreement, we've worked really hard to protect SD2 and our ratepayers. So we've built in sort of 4 places of protection. It is, and this is different from the JPA. And so we've had language in here explaining that this is an exception to the JPA because people didn't want to redo the JPA, but it changes a lot. So what we've built in is the agreement is clear that San Rafael pays for all costs. We have a very strong indemnity clause, which says that SD2, as well as CMSA and Ross Valley, are absolved of any claims related to the agreement. And it's a strong indemnity provision. Third, what I have asked to build in, and San Rafael's attorney keeps pushing back on, even though every time we think this has been resolved, I literally got comments back in the middle of your presentation, is we have made SD2 and Ross Valley third-party beneficiaries to the agreement. What that means is we're not parties. This is an agreement between San Rafael and CMSA, but we have interests in this agreement, that we don't pay costs, that we are indemnified. And so I've made us third-party beneficiaries with the right to enforce this agreement if we need to, in the event that something goes wrong, there are different personnel involved down the line, and we don't have a good faith agreement. And I think that is essential to protect the district as well as district ratepayers. And then on top of it, we have a clause that says if SD2 or Ross Valley has to take action to enforce their rights under the agreement, San Rafael pays. And that is a protection for our ratepayers and the district, because there is nothing in this agreement that benefits the district or our ratepayers. And I think it's essential that we protect those ratepayers. And it also gives an incentive to make sure that SD2's protections in the agreement are respected and abided by. We got version 11. I made some changes because the dispute resolution was actually not consistent with indemnification. And I've once again got comments back that San Rafael opposes anything having to do with third-party beneficiaries and the rights. And I honestly had thought that issue had been resolved. So I was surprised to get those comments. What we're trying to do here is San Rafael, needs to do this somewhat of a merger with CMSA. And I think, all the parties want to accommodate that, but we have to protect our district and our ratepayers. So I'm a little frustrated because I thought this issue was worked out, and here we are on version 11 and it's being brought up again. So I do think we'll get there, but I would not advise anyone on the district to approve this agreement without the third-party beneficiary protections, because I think it's essential for the district. Because I think we all understand, we all have, these sanitation systems are aging. We all have aging infrastructure. I mean, we sat through our SD2 sewer master plan, so we know things can go wrong, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's a super heavy rainstorm and a pump fails, something like that. So I think this indemnity clause is very protective, but I do think we need the additional protections.
So if I could follow up just on that, the SD2 agreement that was rewritten and amended here just about 2 years ago does not provide anything like this to protect SRSD or RVSD. So this agreement goes way beyond what was negotiated between CMSA and SD2 for the operation of your treatment or your pump stations, and is one that is a much different agreement, and that really has a much different indemnification in there and does not protect the other two members at all. And so, quite frankly, this is well beyond the veil of what was done 2 years ago with your own agreement.
I think, though, it's important to recognize the JPA does have those protections. So what this does is it actually changes the JPA. And that's why we're adding in these protections without changing the JPA.
How does it change the JPA?
Well, the relationships among the three entities are very different once San Rafael has no employees and CMSA is actually undertaking the district. So it is very different. And the indemnity provision in this is different from the indemnity provision in the JPA, where everyone absorbs their own costs. Then also, the dispute resolution is slightly different from the JPA. So there are some changes to that, but I do think this is a very strong agreement, provided we can make sure the third-party beneficiary language is in there.
So the SD2 actually has employees? Or are they CMSA's employees that are running your pump stations?
No, it's a very different agreement. They're covering some weekend time. Yes, we do. Town employees, staff sanitation. Okay. It's a much more limited agreement, but you're right. It is an operations agreement. We haven't transferred employees over to CMSA, and they're not carrying out all the functions.
Okay.
So it's similar, but much more limited.
Okay.
Okay, we have one more question from Fred.
Yeah, just for clarification, because I think you've mentioned, and you two have mentioned it, there is no impact on this agreement to SD2 ratepayers, no rate increase. It doesn't affect them at all, correct?
Many places inside the agreement says that SRSD is going to pay for everything that can be identified. And then we're going to pay a 5% overhead to cover those little things that are not really kept track of on an everyday basis. And so we're going to pay for everything directly for all employees, staff time, benefits, all of those kinds of things. In addition, we're going to provide a 5% overhead rate on the total human resources budget to cover those kinds of things that can't be tracked on a regular basis.
Okay, thanks. I just want to get out there again, our ratepayers, no change. Thanks.
And I'll just add on one of those slides talking about the different districts. All of our ratepayers pay different rates. I think Ross Valley has the highest. I think we're next. You guys also have an increase that's forecast. So, and it's not just that. We could look at Las Colinas. You could look at Novato. So I want that to be clear too. So when you're talking about ratepayers, What Paul was talking about was the internal agreement. But if you're a ratepayer in the different entities, you could look at your bills and they're going to be different. That has nothing to do with this proposed agreement. That has to do with how each district has different responsibilities in terms of pump stations, things like that.
Okay, question from Jim.
Yes, I'm looking at the attachment one, tonight's agenda. Where would I find the third-party text in that document? Or isn't it in there? Okay.
Section 11.
Third-party beneficiaries, thank you.
And then it's also mentioned in the indemnification and
15.
dispute resolution. So 15 and 18 as well.
Okay.
Okay, are we going to all read together for a while or
No,
how about if we move on to time for comment from the public? If you would like to speak up, we'll take that now. And then anything else you've got, we can put in the comments section. As if it's a question, you can still ask it later. Okay.
Board President and board members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Tom Gaffney. I'm a board member of the Ross Valley Sanitary District and the Central Marin Sanitation Agency. And I also am on the Central Marin Ad Hoc Committee that was working on this contract for a long time. Yes, we worked very diligently for many months and we had many, many meetings. And the result was an improved contract. However, we were unable to solve several inherent problems with the staff transfer proposal. Now, Central Marin is a joint powers agency that has worked very well. It's provided treatment, I think, since about 1984 for our three agencies. And its strength is that as a joint powers agency, it's providing equal service for all three members. So if one of the members decides to move, and it provides treatment only, so if one of the members moves its collection system over, it changes that balance entirely. And it opens up opportunities for so many areas of potential conflict. For example, if 15 to 17 employees move to Central Marin, we've heard from staff that, gee, we may now need a new HR person. HR is provided very efficiently now with a part-time consultant. Okay, if we hire a new employee, who pays for that? Is it shared equally like we do now? Or shouldn't the collection agency, hey, if we need it because of the added employees, maybe they should pay it. There's going to be all kinds of things like that. Another problem exists is that our manager is going to serve two agencies. And take a look at the services provided by the Central Marin manager to San Rafael. He writes their board minutes. He attends meetings. He does everything that a manager does for a district. It's not just providing the collection system over at our staff. He's manning their system. And so it's a complete change in our structure. We've heard a lot of talk about consolidation here. This is not a consolidation. A consolidation gets rid of agencies. You know, we could, as a good idea, form the Central Marin sanitation district or sanitary district. That would be a consolidation. And that consolidation would include collection systems. And then you don't have to worry about who pays for what or all these arguments that could happen. Another thing that I did want to discuss a little bit.
If you could wrap up, we did pass,
Pardon
you've passed your 3-minute mark. So if you could wrap up, that
I
would
have
be
a 3-minute, okay.
you finish.
One problem is that transferring to Central Marin, they don't have collection system experience. They haven't dealt with the public. They haven't operated in streets hardly at all, except for maybe pump stations, which they do a contract for you as well. This would be a new area of business for Central Marin. They're very good at treatment. And my final point is that regarding the basic unfairness of the potential approval process, we get 2 votes at Central Marin. We serve 5 towns and cities in Marin and 3 large unincorporated areas. We get 2 votes in Marin. As you've heard, we're probably going to vote against this agreement. We think it's a problem. San Rafael also gets 2 votes, but of course their elected officials are excluded from voting because of an obvious conflict of interest. They can't be on both sides of a contract. So their elected officials cannot vote on this. So what they're going to do is appoint 2 unelected voters at the meeting where we approve this contract. And that means that in order to pass, they're going to have to get the Corte Madera vote. And the election would be, if it does passes, it's going to pass to change the 40 plus year operating agency entirely by a vote of only 1 elected official.
Okay.
I think that's grossly unfair.
Thank you very much. This is public comment time and it is normally limited to 3 minutes and you've gone 4.5. So thank you very much for
Okay,
your
thank you.
time today. Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? Come right up.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
Hello.
very much. Hi, Pat. I think the last time we were together was at the board of directors for the tidal waves
Tidal Wave Swim Team.
1,000 years
I
ago.
remember, Michael.
But anyway, my name is Michael Borstein. I'm a board member on the Ross Valley Sanitary District for 12 years. Been with the Central Marin Sanitation Agency, appointed for 10 years, and appointed from there to the North Bay Watershed Association for a whole bunch of years. So just a few things. Mayor Kate, you mentioned several decades ago there was a bad board, the president, general manager of the Ross Valley Sanitary District. Yes, that's true. We were in the news a lot back then. And please note that the Ross Valley Sanitary District was voted the California Small Collection Systems of the Year by CASA, and we are fully running pay-as-you-go now, so that, you know, whatever happened back then, I think we can say that we have seriously put that behind us, and we are running a very, very fine operation now, and like to keep it that way. So regardless of what happened at RVSD back then, it could not possibly have affected CS2 or San Rafael. That was completely internal to RVSD and had nothing to do with CMSA.
Okay. Could you keep your comments up here rather
Yes.
than to
Yeah.
the audience? Okay. Thank you.
That was
Thank you. Just kind of a point of order there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pat. Anyway, when this all first started happening, it was unclear to me what was going on as a board member over there. And I asked Jason at several times during this, how will this be? Give me one reason why this is a good thing for my ratepayers of RVSD, for the ratepayers of CS2. One good reason why this is good for my ratepayers or your ratepayers. Please tell me. And it may be a fine thing for San Rafael to think about. He couldn't, he said, I have none. So that's a point. The second thing I'd like to just say is, lost it for a second. I'm so sorry. We also, just very quickly, we have a difficulty with our general manager at CMSA also effectively being the general manager at SRSD and serving two masters. And I have a difficulty understanding where all the extra time, 10 seconds more. Where does Jason come up with all this extra time when 100% of his time right now is spent with CMSA? Where's he going to get all this extra time that's going to be spent with SRSD? Or anyway, that's it. So
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your thoughts. Okay, is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on this issue? Seeing nobody, is there anybody online who is interested in speaking up?
Yes, we have two hands raised. We'll start, oh, three hands raised, sorry. We'll start with Roy Wolford.
Hello, Mr. Wolford. Go right ahead.
Good evening again. I spoke on this issue some time ago at SR2 meeting, and I just don't think this is a good deal for Corte Madera. And I mentioned that I didn't perceive San Rafael as being a particularly well-run city. I mean, look at the traffic issues they have. Look at the homeless. Northgate went south. And then there's many, many tall buildings being built in a single bound. So that's just part of the San Rafael piece. What is a question, and I hope I get a detailed answer on this, what is the PSL policy? So that's a private sewer lateral. I spent a lot of time and talked a lot at not only the council meeting, but also at the sanitary district meeting. And it is very expensive to replace a PSL. And when you do it in partnership with the sanitary district replacing a PSL, you have an upper and a lower lateral. And there are a number of different municipalities that actually have a public and private program for the PSL. So the sanitary district takes care of the lower and all the infrastructure, and the homeowner, the property owner, takes care of the upper. I would really like to see that type of program instituted. And unfortunately, there's a member of the council that just dismissed all that information. I had provided that council member all the detail. They refuted it and said that every sanitary district in the entire nation is going with a PSL, that the property owner is responsible for that, in addition to the connection to the sewer main. Amy, I appreciate the real aggressiveness you're doing with the identification. Let's put that in perpetuity, forever. Masera, the pension came up, and when I was doing studies a number of years ago, Masera had the richest program of all the pension programs, and it was like 5 or 4 times better than Social Security. So Masera is pretty rich in the retirement. Don't know how you bridge the gate. You do have a person that's getting both, so I guess they're pretty happy. So I would like the council and the sanitary district members to look at this very skeptically. I like what I heard from Ross. I think they've got the right idea. I just see San Rafael is trying to palm off on everybody else a management problem that they are unable to handle. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Roy.
Okay, then we have Doug Kelly.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor Pat. How are you?
Thanks.
I'm Doug Kelly, the president of the Ross Valley Sanitary Board of Directors, and very fond of you and very fond of Mayor Kate. But I would like to first off start by saying I would like the San Rafael Sanitary District to presented tonight. I would ask the courtesy of allowing the Ross Valley Sanitary District to come to your board meeting and present our objections in a longer period of time. We don't want to make it all night long that time if you allow it, but more than a few minutes. So a couple of things I want to touch on. This presentation began with improved services and efficiency. Improved for who? Not for CMSA. CMSA is an extremely well-run plant. Jason does a fantastic job. And by the way, let me just say, I'm calling in from the California Special Districts Association Special District Leadership Academy, where I'm attending for 3 days. We, on our board, go to these meetings. We go to the CASA meetings, California Association of Sanitary Districts. This is what we do. It's not what Jason does. Jason runs an outstanding plant. We'd like him to keep doing that. He is not a collections guy, nor is his staff. And as Michael pointed out, he has a full-time job, and he has one master, the JPA board members. And that's the way we'd like to keep it. So this changes, as your attorney stated, this changes the JPA massively. And, you know, when somebody asks a public official, an elected official, you know, the pension costs have really got out of control. You know, why can't we cancel them? And the answer is always the same. Well, we promised this when we hired these people, and we're not going to break our promise. Well, when we joined this JPA, this was not the deal. And this is changing everything. And there are legal issues. Yes, that's a fact. I'd like to talk longer. I'd like to present some things to your board. But this is not a good thing for Ross Valley. I don't think it's a good thing for Corte Madera. We just are very, very opposed to this. We also feel, you know, we pay half the bills, and we kind of feel like we get bullied around over there a lot. Yeah, bad things happened 20 years ago. Well, all the new board and all new management, we changed that. It's time to stop looking backwards. And we'd be interested in working in consolidation, but this is not a consolidation. This is a Frankenstein JPA that's about to be created. And no JPA works when one party is dragged in kicking and screaming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Did you say there's one more?
Pamela Meeks. Hopefully I said that right.
Hello.
Pamela, thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm a member, elected board member on the Ross Valley Sanitary District since 2010. So I hope I'm not in that 20-year thing you were talking about. I learned a lot tonight, which is great, but I cannot support this merger consolidation, however you want to define it. If you really looked at Doug's letter, most of my feelings come from the letter, and I'm hoping that you read it, that Doug wrote, the president. A couple of other comments I want to make is I was really surprised that San Rafael, the city of San Rafael, cannot work out with how the wages go. It just seems to me like maybe there's not more of an effort or leadership, but I'm really kind of saddened by the fact that that cannot be worked out, and maybe it can be relooked at. You know, the Ross Valley Sanitary District did an independent consolidation study in 2012. And I saw the figures on your graph. I didn't get to check them out that much, but we didn't have a cost savings then. And then we offered to talk to San Rafael back then. I have a letter from the city, and San Rafael did not want to participate. So I know times have changed, a lot has changed, but I'm just giving you a little bit of history. My concern mostly is on the leadership and how this is turning out, and the public's watching. And I don't know how much the public is aware, probably not even a third or even a fourth are aware of what's going down here. But I really want to slow it down and get the public involved. And I'm asking about an advisory committee, because this is a discussion that needs to be brought in more by the public and not just from the electeds. What else do I have in my notes? So I think that's pretty much it. And, we are neighbors. We're neighbors and sister agencies. And we really want to work this out, but how it's coming out is not the way to do it. It's not creating real transparency, especially with the interagencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time and your comments. Okay, so I see anybody else wanting to speak. Close the public comment section of this piece of business and bring it back to the council for comments. I'm wondering, Eli Beckman's been writing furiously.
Yes, I would be pleased to start us off. Thank you very much. A lot of good discussion we heard tonight. Look, I have been on the ad hoc committee that's been reviewing and developing this proposal for more than a year at this point, and my position the entire way through has been consistent. If we are being asked to help a sister agency, we should do it so long as we can do so with no cost to our ratepayers. Corte Madera has always led on these types of shared service agreements, right? We had our police merger, back in I think Central or Twin Cities was like in 08, 09 or something. And then we had Central Marin in like the teens, and then we had Central Marin Fire. Corte Madera has really blazed a trail when it comes to shared services in Marin County, and supporting, any sort of creative consolidation or steps in that direction that are going to serve the public interest and save Marin County's taxpayers money. This agreement is way simpler than either of those. This is a service agreement. It is not a consolidation, as we've heard repeatedly tonight. I'm not going to lie. I am hopeful that this is going to end up being a step towards a consolidation. We all saw that graph. Marin County is, I think, the second smallest county that we saw up there and has like 2 or 3 times the number of sewer districts as San Mateo County, which has 3 times our population. So I think there's broad agreement throughout Marin County, both elected officials and voters, that the number of special districts that we have is insane. It is a huge waste of public resources, and it does not provide efficient services to our ratepayers. So look, again, my position the whole way through has been, as long as we can make sure that any of these services provided for SRSD by CMSA, that we've got all the costs tracked by CMSA and paid by SRSD, and that SD2 is totally indemnified from any potential suits or claims that could arise as a result of those services. As long as we can cover those bases, I am totally happy helping out a sister agency like this. That's where Amy's come in and been incredibly helpful, right? We worked for probably the first 7 months of this process, just with CMSA staff and our ad hoc committee there. I should clarify, the ad hoc committee that's been developing this has been comprised of myself, so 1 representative from SD2, 1 representative from San Rafael San, and 1 representative from RVSD. So we had equal representation from all 3 of the member agencies at CMSA. And I'll note that the 2 members that are not SRSD have a majority, both in that committee and on that board. So it's not, we're able to drive the show here, and that's put us in a position to make sure that we're well protected. We worked for 7 months in this committee before we got the lawyers involved. It was proposed at one point to get the lawyers involved earlier. I thought, let's get to like a working draft agreement where we've spelled out everything that we're trying to do, so that we can make sure that we're not wasting our lawyers' time and our ratepayers' money in legal fees, spinning our wheels. So we brought the lawyers in. We kind of entered the legal phase of this process. I think Amy said 5 months ago at this point. They've done a really good job of basically taking what we created in sort of engineering and operation world and translating it into something that is, as close as we can get to watertight from a legal perspective. So that's been important to me the whole way through, right, is making sure that we are covered every way here. Amy spoke earlier about the 4 points of protection that she incorporated into this agreement. 1, SRSD pays all costs related to these services. 2, SRSD indemnifies the other parties. 3, the other 2 member agencies, that's SD2 and RVSD, are third-party beneficiaries and have those protections. And 4, SRSD would pay other agencies enforcement costs if it became necessary in the future for one of the other member agencies to enforce their rights under the agreement. I am happy to share that all 4 of these provisions were unanimously agreed to by the ad hoc committee that has been developing this proposal. to the extent that it sounds like there's a change in thinking, at least from San Rafael's lawyer. I don't know whether that's a change in position on their part or whether that's just a miscommunication. I'm confident, given that this was already agreed to unanimously by the ad hoc committee, I'm confident that we'll be able to get those terms back in the agreement and get back to a place where we're confident that SD2 is covered. And as long as we're able to do that, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't move forward with this. I think at the end of the day, right, this is in the public interest. This is about providing the best service possible to residents of Marin County, making sure that we are playing a role as a special district in moving Marin away from a culture of these multitudes of Byzantine, incredibly expensive special districts and moving us towards a future of more efficient, streamlined government operations. So that is why, as long as we can get these couple of clauses back into our agreement and get back to a place where we feel sufficiently protected from a legal perspective, I am happy to support this. I did want to just speak to some of the comments that we've heard brought up earlier, both from colleagues on the board here and from members of the public. Let's see. So Jim had a comment on pensions. Paul provided a very helpful answer. I just wanted to reiterate that, the bottom line here is that CMSA and SD2 will not be responsible for any pensions for SRSD staff or CMSA staff doing SRSD work, whether that's past pension liability or future pension liability. That will all be separately tracked and 100% reimbursed by San Rafael San. Rosa had a question on employment. I made sure, this was very important to me, I made sure that CMSA was not obligated to hire any employees without being able to review their performance and their record and sort of go through our normal onboarding channels beforehand. That was really important to me, and we were able to get that into the agreement. Let's see. Fred had a question on risk. I think Amy spoke to that in her discussion about the 4 pillars that she has worked in here. Paul touched on that briefly as well. Pat asked about litigation. Again, right, we're going to make sure, if we approve this agreement, we're going to make sure that all litigation costs related to this agreement will be covered by SRSD, and Paul touched on that as well. And you also asked about sort of contingency, right? I think you had a question getting at, well, what happens if a dispute arises and the dispute resolution process has to pay out, does that affect CMSA's ability to, continue its normal operations? The answer is no, right? These new operations, these new services that CMSA would be providing with new staff that they would be hiring, none of that is mission critical to CMSA, right? And if that work had to be paused or terminated due to, a dispute related to this proposed agreement, there's no reason why CMSA's collection work for SD2 would stop as a result of that. There's no reason why CMSA's broader treatment work for all the member agencies would stop as a result of that. Jim asked a question about fines. Who pays if there's a fine or an overflow, assessment? SRSD. Let's see. Fred asked about financial risk, and I just wanted to reiterate here, we've made sure that every cost will be tracked by CMSA and reimbursed by SRSD so that Sanitary District 2 and Ross Valley Sanitary are not on the hook for any costs related to providing these services or hiring these employees. Wanted to also speak to a couple points brought up by members of the public here. We heard from Tom a statement that CMSA provides equal services to all agencies. CMSA does provide wastewater treatment for all its member agencies, but it does so to very different degrees in the sense that these 3 member agencies, well, rather, SD2 is of a very different size than the other 2 member agencies, right? SD2 is, I forget, like maybe 6% of the wastewater going into CMSA. The other 2 are what, 49 and, don't make me do math on the fly, 52 or something? I don't know, at 42 or something. But my point is that, right, it's not a one-to-one, it's not all apples to apples at CMSA right now. And beyond that, it is true that CMSA is already providing contract services to a bunch of other agencies, including SD2, right? As Amy discussed, it's certainly smaller in scale than what's proposed here. But the point is that it is not accurate to say that CMSA provides equal services to all the member agencies. And so I don't see this as something that really changes in any substantive way the nature of the JPA or the relationships between the members. We also heard from both Tom and Doug that CMSA does not have, experience with public-facing collection workers. We heard that, Jason is not a collections guy. We heard basically questions about, does CMSA have the experience doing this type of work? That is the whole reason why CMSA would be hiring this collection staff, which does have the experience providing this service. So that speaks to that. We had heard from both Michael and Doug, basically the argument that, give me a reason why this is good for our ratepayers. The whole point is that it is neither good nor bad for our ratepayers. And as long as we can make sure it's not bad for our ratepayers, why in the world would we oppose it if we're being asked to help another agency and help citizens in Marin County, right? Help our fellow ratepayers here. As long as it doesn't cost us anything, it's the right thing to do. We also, we heard, well, this goes back to sort of a previous point. We heard repeatedly the question, where is Jason getting all this time? Again, Jason is going to be hiring, CMSA is going to be hiring a bunch of new staff to do this work. And one of those staff positions is going to be the SRSD district manager. So Jason's not going to be running the SRSD district himself. And, if he's, whatever time he needs to spend on SRSD business would be tracked separately and billed to SRSD. I think the last point that I wanted to make here, we heard from our last member of the public, something to the effect of this discussion needs to happen in public. That was a bit of a head scratcher to me because this entire agreement has been developed over the last more than a year through exclusively public meetings, publicly noticed meetings. I actually was chairing the ad hoc committee at the time when we started this process, and I chose for us to conduct these meetings as if they were subject to the Brown Act, even though they're not, just so that we could make sure that we had maximum public transparency here and maximum opportunity for public input. So I am very confident in the public process that's played out and in the ability for folks to get involved and have transparency into what we've been doing. I realize that was a lot, and that's all I've got.
I appreciate the summary. Before we have any further conversation, I'd like to say that seems like 2 points have come up. And one is that the agreement isn't even in a situation where we can say yay or nay to it at this point because it's still in transition. And secondly, we're not really asked to give a vote here. We have a representative serving on the panel, and I think that this is obviously going to continue itself for another conversation. So I'm wondering if there's really any benefit to any further conversation. Yes. In the microphone.
I'd like to understand whether Corte Madera has had the same hiring issues with our sewer employees. And if we haven't, what's going on?
So the simple answer is yes, it's challenging. And it's a constant conversation I have with our district staff. As you know, we have now Deputy District Manager Fernanda Stefanik, Chris Good, RJ. I mean, it is a challenge, but we're doing okay at it at this point. But constantly, I would agree, and I would say yes, recruitment and retention is a challenge. For getting people who are qualified and good to work on SD2 maintenance and operations because there are higher salaries elsewhere. We try to do it in other ways where we sort of say, hey, this is about growth and opportunity and culture here and so on and so forth. But I'll stop there. And so it's a constant thing we are working on.
Okay, thank you.
Ren?
Yeah, I'll keep my comments short because Eli's been said a lot, which is it's all good stuff. I can support the initiative moving forward. As far as I can see, I want to say that any type of liability or financial risk, and I'm looking at this from an SD2 standpoint, serving as a board member, I want to say it's been eliminated. And I usually don't use eliminate and risk in the same sentence, but it seems like it's been eliminated. I get the feeling through the agreement that, Amy, you've done a good job of putting in sufficient protections for SD2 and also our ratepayers. And there's no impact on our ratepayers at all. It seems like it's totally neutral in that sense. It seems like the only thing that needs to be hashed out now is it seems like there needs to be further work on the agreement So it sounds like that may need to come back to us once that gets finalized. And I would be looking to you, Amy, as our board attorney, when you come back to us, that you have a comfort level with the agreement that the protections, everything's in place. And just one last comment, because when I read through the staff report, I think this got overlooked. Sangerfeld Sanitary, I think, has fronted $5,000 in attorney's fees for Amy for SD2's attorney. I don't know if you're over that, and I'm not going to press Kate for more. Thank you, and Ross Valley. But I appreciate that, and I think it shows that they have skin in the game. They want to get this done. So again, I can support it moving forward with comments I made. Thanks.
Any more comments?
I'll just make the comment that, or I guess maybe more of a question to our town attorney. Determining responsibility, no matter what the, agreement says, can that be, is that a judge's decision? I'm just thinking, is that the kind of, we're trying to get judge-proof language in there?
Right. It's a really good question. I think the indemnity clause has been amended. That was a concern that I pointed out in negotiations with attorneys, is that, systems can fail and it's not negligence all the time. So that language has been changed. I think it is more comprehensive now, so that the indemnity kicks in regardless of negligence. But I will, I'll be honest, I represent SD2. I don't represent CMSA or San Rafael. And, if I did, I might have other things to add. But my focus has been simply to make sure this agreement protects SD2. But I do think some of that issue that was raised in the letter from Ross Valley that first point has been, the language has changed in a positive way.
Anything else, Jim?
Well, I just wanted to say, as I've communicated with Eli, he has our proxy. Okay. We're trusting him to do it right. I believe Attorney Ackerman is on the case. I don't know what else we can say.
Okay, is there anything else from council that needs to be said? Adam, do you need any more?
Well, I just want clarification because I think this conversation started with bringing this back, but I'm hearing that the board seems to be comfortable with.
Put it in Eli's hands.
Okay.
Do you need a vote on that or just a
As long
consensus?
as I can see that there's a majority of the board members, I think that helps all of us.
Yeah, I think as long as the protections are there, and then I would encourage Ross Valley to, hire a good attorney who's going to do what they're doing for us. They have a good attorney. So, it seems like with a little bit more detailed crafting, we can help out City of San Rafael, and hopefully we'll be coming to you for help someday. And, we all need to work together as a community. We are so many little towns with so little population and such a small area that it seems like we should be able to work together on these things and make it work for everybody. But okay, anything else from anybody? All right, well, we'll move on then to district manager and board member reports. Mr. District Manager.
No, so our district manager is not
Yeah, well,
here
you're
today,
the
but
stand-in.
no reports from the district manager.
Anything else from any of our board members? Seeing none, I think we can, is there any discussion of the draft agenda for our upcoming meeting? And not seeing any, I hereby adjourn Sanitary District 2.
We have a 5-minute break.
Yes, we'll take a 5-minute bio break for those who need it. Okay, we are going to resume our series of meetings tonight. First, I would like to report out a bit of a delay from our 5 o'clock closed meeting that I do not have anything to report. There was no action taken. So with that, we are now moving ahead to the Town of Corte Madera Special Town Council meeting. And can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Andrews,
This a special council meeting or just a regular one?
Well, it says on the page special, so I
think it's
thought
special
I
because of
would
the
read
time we're
it.
starting.
Okay. Here.
okay. Councilmember Beckman,
Here.
Councilmember Casissa, Vice Mayor Thomas,
Here.
Mayor Ravazio.
Here, I do think it was special because it's out of order, because we did the sanitary district meeting first. Okay, so we will now go to open time for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come up and address the council? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone online?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for open
Okay.
time.
And we have no presentations tonight, so moving on to, oh, I was like, there's a back page. I was like, moving on to adjournment. I love this meeting. Okay, the consent calendar. We have just 2 items on the consent calendar tonight. These are things grouped together, which don't need further discussion. However, anyone on staff, in the council, in the chambers can ask for something to be pulled off the consent calendar. Is there anyone with that wish we could grant? Okay, anybody online wanting to say something?
No
Right.
hands raised from attendees online and also no requests received from the public to pull any items from the consent calendar.
Okay, then could I get a motion on the consent calendar?
I move items 4A and 4B, please.
There a second?
Second.
Okay. Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, and then we have just 2 public hearings tonight. First is 5A, consideration and possible action to introduce an ordinance amending Title IX, Public Conduct by amending Section 905050 of Chapter 905, Administrative Citation, to authorize the town council to set administrative penalties for violations of the Corte Madera Municipal Code by resolution, and 2, adopt Resolution 42-2025, adopting a schedule of penalties for administrative citations issued pursuant to Chapter 905 of the CMMC. And I'm assuming we have a staff report from, you look
Yes,
like maybe
Michael
it's Michael
Moriarty.
Moriarty that give us a staff report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Ravazio and
Thank
members
you.
of the town council. I'd like to start by thanking Ms. Ackerman for her assistance and the legal research and the preparation of the staff report as well. So preface it by that. So tonight we're here for an administrative citation program update. There is a slideshow presented. This program introduces ordinance amendments to Section 905050, which is Chapter 905 of the Corte Madera Municipal Code, in which authorizes the town council to set administrative penalties for violations of the municipal code by resolution. In doing so, it's a 2-part. Part of that aspect is adopting resolution number 42-2025, which establishes a new fee schedule for specified violations. Next slide, please. Purpose of tonight's item is to modernize the town's administrative citation structure to strengthen enforcement for key violations, improve flexibility for setting and adjusting fine amounts, and to ensure that we are aligned with state laws and regulations. Next slide, please. Background. Administrative citation program was adopted in 2021 via Ordinance 1007. It established Chapter 905 of the Corte Madera Municipal Code. The current code in existence identifies a fine structure amounts that are hard-coded in Government Code Section 36900, specifying low-level penalties for specified violations. And in short, what that means is that the code itself specifies the actual penalty and fine. Furthermore, any adjustments require, and why we're here today is an adjustment and a modification, and any adjustments require full ordinance amendments, why we're here tonight. And what we've learned over time since the inception of the ordinance was some of the fines have proven insufficient as deterrence. And tonight we hope to address some of those, not all of them, just a handful of them that we have prioritized as a priority and high impact to Corte Madera. Next slide, please. So why change is needed? Certain violations continue despite existing penalties. And examples of those in the sections in which we we are addressing this evening are illegal dumping on both public property and as well as park and rec facilities, and that also includes vandalism. Unauthorized tree removals, those who remove historic trees or large-scale trees that require a permit. And stormwater discharges, which is illicit discharges into the storm drain. It could be concrete trucks spraying their concrete residue into the storm drain, or perhaps someone who drains their entire swimming pool with chlorine and chemicals. And those who, dispose of motor oil or other chemicals into the storm system. And lastly, stop work order violations, which would be the building official would order a stop work on a project for a code violation, and the penalty associated with the continuing to work was so minimal that the risk versus reward didn't hold out. And so we are attempting to address that. So the fines must be meaningful, proportional, and adoptable. Next slide, please. So what the ordinance amendment does, and remember we have the ordinance and the resolution. So the ordinance removes specified tiered fine amounts from current ordinance 905050. And those fines right now are 100, 200, and 500 respectively for 1, 2, 3 violations within 1 year. So you can see how being penalized for removing a 100-year-old tree and $100 consequence just doesn't hold up. The ordinance amendment also, it sets the fine by resolution, and that's the specified 5 sections that we are proposing to increase that fine. It increases the administrative enforcement efficiency, but one thing that did not change is it maintains all due process rights and appeal procedures that are specified within that same administrative citation section. What the resolution, next slide, please. Thank you. What the resolution does, it just establishes the new fine schedule. Fines up to $1,000 for key violations, including Chapter 9.28, conduct on public property, 930, conduct in parks and recreation facilities. And those two are, I said earlier, is related to illegal dumping, vandalism, things like that, where we could recover those costs associated administratively. We frequently have vandalism in the town park restrooms, and $100 administrative fine if it's handled administratively rather than criminally. It just doesn't, with the staff time associated with cleanup and cost for repair, it doesn't make sense. Going back to the chapters implemented or affected, Chapter 933, urban runoff and pollution, that's the storm drain infiltration or illicit discharge. Chapter 15.50, tree removal without permit, already spoke on that. And as well as Chapter 15.70, stop work order issues. It's important to note that the ordinance amendment that we're here tonight to discuss doesn't change any of the other government code limits. So all the remaining fines that are specified pursuant to that government code section, like your dogs off the leash, the minor violations, they remain the same at 100 and 200, 500 respectively. Next slide, please. So the ordinance and resolution, they're aligned with state law. As I spoke earlier, government section 36900 through 36901 establishes the fine ceilings. The new fine schedule does align within the legal limits. And it also specifies short-term recent nuances to the short-term rental violations following specialized state rules that were recently enacted. Next slide, please. Fiscal impact, minimal. I consider that little to none fiscal impact because these violations do occur infrequently. I can count on a handful, one hand, how many times we've issued these citations. So from the big picture, it's not going to have a big impact in terms of financial debt owed to the town. Of course, a fine of 10 times what the original punishment was, there is an impact, but it's obviously to the violator. And just a reminder, the philosophy of the town and the marching orders that we have in code enforcement, our enforcement goal has always been to correct the behavior and not to be a source of revenue. And so I wanted to highlight that. From an environmental impact standpoint, it's not a CEQA project. Next slide, please. Benefits to the town. It improves deterrence for high impact violations previously specified. It ensures fines remain relevant over time. It reduces the administrative burden and supports public safety and environment by allowing rapid response to these evolving enforcement needs. Next slide. So council options before you: introduce the ordinance and adopt the resolution as specified, introduce with modifications, or take no actions. Recommendation from staff is to introduce the ordinance amending 905050 and adopt the corresponding resolution 42-2025 establishing the new fine structure. And with that, I will take any questions.
Thank you for that very concise, well-presented presentation. Appreciate it
My
very
pleasure.
much. Very good. Are there questions from the council? Fred?
Couple. Are the amount of fines, are they pretty much in line with other towns and cities, or?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at that from outside perspective. Perhaps Ms. Ackerman can speak to that. I just remember that the actual codes that we have, or the government code specified the tier rank, the previous fine structure, and so this is to affect an increased fine. So please, if you have additional info.
Yes, but because state law sets the amount of fees, there's not really very much discretion. It's just a matter of whether you treat it in the misdemeanor category of up to 1,000, or you treat it as an infraction, and building codes are set. So there really isn't a whole lot of variation. There are, some of the towns do select certain offenses to give a higher penalty, as we're doing tonight. So I think it's fairly consistent with what you'll see in other jurisdictions.
The one I'm aware of is Larkspur with their tree. If you essentially cut down a tree without a permit, it's a steep fine, and they based it on the assessed value essentially of the tree itself. So it's not going that far, but it's certainly going to be, this fine is much more significant than what we have currently. So.
And then under the types of fines schedule of penalties for violations, what are you seeing the most of just within those categories?
It depends on the time of year. You're talking about what type of current violations we are enforcing, or what are we seeing our top?
What are you seeing? But I'm just looking at the
for
ones,
this list.
yeah, off of that list. Yeah, I don't want to start going off on.
I think the reoccurring, something that is reoccurring. The top two I'd say would be the trees. It's a real issue when there's development or some kind of remodels. People, here's the philosophy. Someone finds out they have this tree and they want to build something. They look at the consequences, $100 for removing that tree, whereas a tree permit costs $300. And so we're constantly baffled with people just going through and just cutting multiple big, long, heritage redwood trees or whatever. And our impact previously was minimal. We would require, we would really grasp at straws at how we can continue, how we can enforce this, and also require, additional plantings, things like that. We've asked for, arborist reports. We try, it's challenging. Illicit discharge is another one. We issue that citation fairly regularly. It's $100. With that though, we require, so if it's a concrete truck that sprays down and washes down the street, we either require they do an immediate cleanup. They pop the storm drain catch basin. They get in there with vacuums and clean it all up. I mean, it's a significant undertaking. And as for if it's pool chemicals or anything in the storm drain, it's a significant mixed stop violation. The county can fine us seriously, and we're responsible. So we need to make sure that we're on top of the enforcement side of this and prevent illicit discharge into those storm drains. But I would say those two primarily are the top two. And then we do have from the building side, a stop work order will be issued for a code violation. And, you know, unfortunately, those create urgency for the builder or the homeowner. But we still, it's a huge process to retroactively get a permit. So again, there's a risk versus reward analysis by the property owner and or the contractor. We're like, hey, we're only going to find $100 a day. We're on a time schedule. These projects cost thousands of dollars a day. And so they're actually, and this doesn't happen all the time, but they continue to work. And I know you as council members get emails from residents that are concerned and disappointed with how long some of these projects take. And so we're just trying to implement a meaningful fine or punishment system for the actual violation. It's commensurate to the actual violation.
I just have a couple more. On the runoff one, the penalty, it says up to $1,000 per offense. Who's determining?
It's going to be 1,000 because we're going from 100 to 1,000.
Okay. I'm asking because again, on the penalty, I just noticed this penalty for violation, it says up to.
Right. And I'm a firm believer, and Amy Lyle and I have had these discussions where I like everything very black and white and no room for interpretation, because the last thing I want to do is implement a fine of $1,000 and then someone's going to come in and say, well, what, is there a sliding scale? I'd like to see something very black and white in terms of the punishment. So, Ms. Ackerman, if I can just ask, Mr. Casisa did say up to. I want to make sure we're clear here that this is a fine of $1,000. Is that accurate? Or do we still have some discretion as to what we want to?
The ordinance in the run-up section, chapter 9.33 does give you discretion, but if the preference is to simply make it $1,000 per, we can, delete the language up to and make that amendment.
I think to your point, I think in this gray area and having some leeway is challenging for staff to administer that.
It sounds like your preference would be make it $1,000 across the board.
I would prefer a specified denomination, and I think 1,000 is appropriate considering the ramifications for each one of these violations.
Okay, and then just one last question for you. Do you think upping these fines is going to be a deterrent or it's going to help? I know a lot of this is behavior based.
It is, but I think we're starting to change a little bit of philosophy in terms of not only this ordinance, but like we've given so many warnings and notices. And I mean, I was here months ago on the STR short-term rental discussion, and I disclosed how many times I had to reach out to people to just try to get them to call us and engage us. And it's not until we actually assess a meaningful punishment or a fine that we actually engage them. And it's very sad because I don't operate like that, and I don't believe any of you do, but like at times, like unless there's a specified course of action and a definitive punishment, that's when we get people to engage us.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Yes.
In terms of runoff, if someone's washing their car in their driveway and everything flows down Hickory to the High Canal, is that a illegal runoff?
I'm not too sure. We haven't addressed anything of that nature at this point because a lot of these soaps and stuff are environmentally friendly. We haven't received proactive complaints about somebody washing a car. I mean, I wash my car at my house with not having fear of some type of an enforcement action. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. So any type of discretion that we'd like to have would be something along those lines. We're talking about motor oil. We're talking about a discharge of chlorine of 18,000 gallons into the storm drain, or the concrete. According to our engineers downstairs, they're very concerned about the concrete and the lime and stuff that goes into the storm drain. As it dries, it starts to dry, and now you have this pipe that was once X amount of feet, and over time the concrete dries and it narrows the actual storm drain. And so that would. I hope I answered.
If I may, the answer is no. It's illegal discharge of pollutants, and the ordinance does define pollutants, and it's not soap.
Okay, I just want to be paranoid.
Any other questions? I have one. I am wondering how we don't become the cheap place to cut down a good tree. And it sounds like I remember reading in the paper that it was $35,000 that somebody paid in Larkspur for illegally cutting down more than one tree. It was a few. But can we go higher on that one?
I think this is a topic of conversation, and maybe I'll turn this over to Amy, because I know that, Tracy Hegarty does all our tree permit processing. And I know that, and I've been here several years now, and I've had a lot of conversations with her about this. And I know that she does believe that removal of tree section might require some updating, and maybe that's how we get there.
So that would be a different
That would probably be
a different process.
conversation. I would defer to Amy
If I may, so the town has different methods of enforcement. So, misdemeanors are a criminal offense. The DA could prosecute, or there's a new law that says your town attorney could prosecute. There are civil penalties, which are penalties that are awarded to the court. It does mean you have to go to court to enforce them, but sometimes having civil penalties in your ordinance is a deterrent. There are injunctive relief. The administrative citation process is just one tool in the enforcement toolbox. And so it's limited in the fines that we can assess under administrative citation are limited, but we can explore other avenues of replacement value, things like that, which might be a greater deterrent. So the reason why towns like administrative citation is it is the easiest remedy, easiest enforcement mechanism, but undoubtedly it is not. The fines don't deter certain types of behavior that are particularly egregious, and I think making these amendments is one step. But we will, I think, look at this issue and see if we can't come back with something stronger in particular for trees.
Could it be $1,000 or more rather than the up to $1,000? No, because it's administrative. That's what limits it.
The state law limits it. So if it is a misdemeanor offense, it's up to 1,000 per violation. Now, some of our violations occur every day, and we do have in our ordinance that every day is a separate violation. Not so helpful for trees, but very helpful
every day that tree remains cut down.
But for stop work orders, if they continue to work for other offenses, we can accumulate them. But again, this is just one remedy, and it is limited by state law.
Okay, well, we are supposed to be just asking questions now. So are there others? And if not, we'll turn to the audience for anybody to comment on this publicly. And not seeing anyone here in the room, is there anybody online who would like to speak on this issue?
We do not have any hands raised from our online attendees, and we also didn't receive any emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, bring it back to council. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion on the
I'm
resolution.
sorry.
One other comment. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but we do need to make an oral amendment to a slight word in the actual ordinance. On page 2, section 2, amendments to chapter 905 administrative citation, section 905050, subsection A, it says city council. It should reflect town council. So I'd like to make the oral amendment.
Early, it is time for me to retire. That was my mistake. And I think we'd also want to amend the schedule language to take out the up to 1,000. So with those amendments, I think Madam Chair can take a motion.
I'd like to move the resolution with amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
And can we get a vote?
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. And does that mean that the tree thing moving forward would be on the work plan next year for a whole nother thing to go through? Okay, awesome. All right.
Oh,
I'm sorry, did I?
sorry, that was for the ordinance
Oh, and we also
introduction.
need-
We also need
Yes.
to adopt the resolution with the schedule of penalties, and in that we have the amendment to remove the up to on the schedule. So if we could just have a second motion for that.
Okay,
I can make the motion to adopt resolution 42-2005, adopting schedule penalties for administrative citations issued pursuant to chapter 9.05 with the recommended changes.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you. Town Attorney
Okay.
Ackerman.
And on to 5B, consideration and possible action to adopt the Development Impact Report as the town's nexus study for the fire protection impact fee and adopt ordinance number 1051, amending the Corte Madera Municipal Code by adding chapter 3.32A in order to establish and administer development impact fees for fire protection services on behalf of the Central Marin Fire Authority with urgency, findings for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, and safety in order to oppose this fee on projects seeking entitlement for specified types of development. Number 2, introduce ordinance 1054, adopting the Development Impact Report as the town's nexus study for the fire protection impact fee, adopting findings required by the Mitigation Fee Act, and amending the CMMC by adding chapter 3.32A, the fire protection impact fee, in order to establish and administer development impact fees for fire protection services on behalf of the Marin Central Fire Authority. And 3, adopt resolution number 43, 2025, implementing chapter 3.32A of the CMMC, setting the fire protection impact fee amounts. Recommendation is to approve the item as requested. And do we have a staff report?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Ravazio, members of the council. Sorry for the very long title, but in total, what we're talking about tonight is a new impact fee related to fire services. So tonight we do have Ruben Martin, our fire chief for Central Marin Fire Authority, not department. I'm going to have to remember that. And then we also have Khushbu Ingle, who is our consultant who helped create the Nexus study with Matrix Consulting. And then we also have Ann Danforth, our assistant town attorney, who was a great help in crafting these ordinances for us tonight. And you can move to the next slide, Lorena. Thank you. So with that, I just wanted to set this up and then I'll hand it over to Ruben. But tonight we're really just walking through the Nexus study, the laws that govern how that operates to be able to establish a fee. We'll look at our housing projections and then the fire services that are being identified as a need. And we will be also talking about the urgency ordinance and the reason we are asking you to adopt that tonight. And then the nuance with having a permanent ordinance being introduced as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ruben to talk about how this came to be.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for having us this evening. And this is definitely a team effort. We couldn't do this without the assistance of town staff, as the Central Marin Fire Authority doesn't have the regulatory or statutory methods to assess these impact fees on any kind of development. So it would have to go through the town and or city of Larkspur as our member agents. The genesis that spurred this departmental impact fee for fire services was looking at through 2023 and 2024 with all of the housing elements that were being created within our town and within the city to look at how much housing are we anticipating over the next 15 years, and how much growth do we anticipate within the town of Corte Madera, and what is that really going to impact the Central Marin Fire Authority to be able to deliver an adequate level of fire services to our new community members, and without negatively impacting the existing citizens of the town of Corte Madera. So with looking at all the numbers and combining, and I'm looking at it speaking both with Larkspur and Corte Madera as we did the Nexus study combined with annexes or appendices in the back, identifying how the methodology was discovered for both Corte Madera and Larkspur. So if you look at a jurisdiction wide, we're looking at about maybe 1,700 units or so over the next 15 years being proposed or being required by the regional housing allocation numbers through the Association of Bay Area Governments, putting this out there for us without really looking at local control of what can we actually accomplish. So if you look at that over the next 15 years with the amount of development that's anticipated, we're looking at about a 4,400 to 4,500 person increase within our population. So how do we intend to serve that population at the same level of service that our current residents are experiencing? And the only way to really do that is for our community and our fire service to grow with the community as it grows. And so what these development impact fees do is allow us to now assess this fee to new developments that are coming in that can allow for the fire department to now continue to maintain the growth to provide that adequate level of service. And these fees are very specific on what we can use them for, which would be for equipment, fire apparatus, specialized fire apparatus if we need to purchase some, and portions of facilities to be able to house the growth of the department as we grow with the community. So that's kind of what generated this kind of nexus here. And then we started having conversations in late 2024, early 2025 with Matrix, our consulting group, which then working with both the city of Larkspur and with the town of Corte Madera, trying to come up and strategize what is the best approach that where we can now, as a fire service, continue to grow with our community. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Amy.
Yeah, actually, I think we can pass it over to Kushbu to talk about the highlights of the study itself. If you don't mind moving to the next slide, Lorena.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Kushbu Engel, Vice President with Matrix Consulting Group. And like Amy and Ruben mentioned, we've been working closely with them over the last couple of months on this impact fee study. Just a couple of key highlights, background information. Currently, the town doesn't have an impact fee for fire services, so this is a brand new impact fee. There are two different components when we looked at this impact fee. One is the facilities side, which is really specific to Corte Madera. We're looking at the specific fire stations located there. And then the equipment side, which is all owned by the Central Marin Fire Authority. So that's their component of the impact fee analysis. So through this, you'll see kind of there's two components that get added together because like Ruben mentioned, the Fire Authority actually can't impose their own impact fees. So we're making sure that those are covered. The fee study really looked at 2040 for kind of its future projections. Usually impact fees, like all other fee studies, there are a snapshot in time. So we're picking a projected growth horizon, and we felt that 2040 was an appropriate time frame without going too much farther out and kind of doing too much speculation. And as part of this, we also did a comparative survey. If we go to the next slide. Briefly about the overall methodology, we start with looking at what is that future growth. So we wanted to take a look at, what are those regional projections, but also like Ruben and Amy both alluded to, there are specific housing needs assessments done for the town as well as the city. So understanding what those future needs look like, both from a regional standpoint, but as well as from a specific jurisdictional standpoint. Once we determine what that future growth looks like, we take a look at what are the appropriate infrastructure costs. So we take a look at facility master plans, we take a look at equipment information and understanding kind of what are those infrastructure needs to meet the existing and future needs of the jurisdiction. When we're looking at this, we really want to determine what's that proportional impact of new development. So like Ruben mentioned, there's a current existing service level standard that's provided by the fire authority. So we want to maintain that standard. So through this process, we're not necessarily trying to improve that standard because legally you can't. We're really trying to just maintain that existing level of standard as the population grows. So we take all of that information, we document all the assumptions behind it in order to make sure that we're in compliance with AB 1600, which is the original kind of mitigation fee act, as well as the addendum and changes to it with AB 602, which one of the key components of AB 602 was that going forward, any sort of residential impact fees have to be square footage based. So you'll see that through this process, we looked at calculating those to be on a per square foot basis. If we go to the next slide. So big picture, putting all of this information together, there's three major categories we looked at. So we looked at single family housing, multifamily housing, and then assisted living and memory care housing or needs. We looked at what's the impact fee component that again covers that fire station facility needs. And then what's the Central Marin Fire Authority add-on component? So kind of covering those equipment costs. And then we come up with what is that full cost associated with these different fee categories or land use categories. One thing I want to caveat is that's essentially kind of your ceiling, your maximum justifiable fee through this process. And if we go to the next slide. So just some considerations, and I know Amy's going to talk about this more. Again, the goal of this is to get an understanding from council on where and how do you want to set your fees. Again, what's been calculated is sort of that ceiling. So you have the ability to set all the way up to that fee amount. Just a reminder, impact fees can only be used to fund infrastructure needs, so they cannot be used for operational purposes. So it's really critical that, when we're looking at these service levels, we're really trying to maintain that facility standard, that equipment standard. So if we have X number of engines or X number of station space per resident, we're trying to maintain that. And I know it says on here that it's technically lower fees. That was a typo. The only other fire districts around you that have done this impact fee study recently are Sonoma County and Sonoma Valley. And technically their fees are lower than the proposed kind of full cost fees. But again, their growth projections are very different too. So that's something to consider. And with that, I think I turn it back over to you, Amy.
All right. Thank you, Khushbu. So just moving on. So I just wanted to talk again about the projected growth as part of the study. This looks actually beyond our housing element timeline. This cycle is looking to 2031 and the study is looking to 2040. So it is looking at other growth projections. We worked with Khushbu and the city of Larkspur to make sure we're aligned on the projections being used. So it was looking at a combination of different entities. And so that's where these numbers are coming from. And I also just wanted to note, this really does tie back to our housing element. There is a mitigation measure that was adopted as part of the environmental impact report. And that requires us to look at creating a formula related to public safety. That's really why we're doing this. And this came up, you may remember in the conversation about 240 Tamil Vista, and this fee was not in place. And so they did not have to pay a fee towards their fire service. We will be looking at doing an additional fee study with Central Marin Police now that this study has been developed. So that will be forthcoming. So this one was really a partnership with Central Marin Fire and the city of Larkspur. Next slide, please. And then throughout this whole process, we've really tried to make sure that we're aligned with the city of Larkspur. And this is one area that we were aligned, and we are recommending that there be a 50% fee reduction for affordable units. Those would be those that are 100% affordable to low and very low income households. This is in line with other jurisdictions in California. This is in line with the fee reduction that you all approved as part of the building fee update this spring. And ADUs are exempt from impact fees if they are under 750 square feet. I just wanted to clarify that that's already in state law to really incentivize building smaller units and affordability, as affordable housing is generally seen as a higher need over any kind of cost issue. And I also, since we're talking about this, this fee, as it's written in the ordinance, would apply to projects that are not entitled. So it would exempt, for instance, the 240 Tamil Vista project, because that project is already entitled and they have submitted building permits as of tonight, when we hope that you approve this ordinance. Next slide, please. So we also wanted to give you some examples of how this fee would apply. We do have other impact fees in town. We have a street impact fee, we have an affordable housing fee, we have a commercial linkage fee. So this is a very common type of fee that's put into place as a one-time payment to offset an impact that the housing unit is creating. So for instance, and this is just example only, if 240 Tamil Vista were to pay this fee with the 50% discount, that would be about $400,000. And then single family examples, these are two projects that are currently under review, but you can see those fees would be between $8,000 and $9,000. And so this is just providing examples of how this would be administered. So it is for new units only, and it's really looking at the habitable living space within the perimeter of the structure. So it would not consider breezeways or other types of things that may not meet that definition. So that's clearly laid out within the ordinance. And then we also plan on meeting with the city of Larkspur once their ordinance is adopted to really make sure that we're administering these in the same way, to make sure that we have some ease of application for our applicants, because we do share a lot of applicants and developers. Next slide, please. So I did want to talk about the urgency ordinance specifically. It is very rare that we recommend an urgency ordinance. In this case, it is very imperative because it really gets to the heart of whether or not this impact fee will actually have an impact. So the town has recently received 2 large applications, and we are expecting another large application very soon. And so when you look at all of these combined, that really encompasses equivalent to 75% of our expected RHNA under the current housing cycle. And I will note, one of these applications was not foreseen within the housing element. So it wasn't even a housing site that's been identified. So we could potentially see more growth beyond that. And generally, when you adopt an impact fee, there's an ordinance introduction, it's adopted at the next meeting, and then it's in effect 60 days after. So that's a very long time. And considering the amount of units that are coming through at this moment or imminently, we want to make sure that this fee is in place to capture the bulk of these units that are moving through. So that's the reason for the urgency ordinance. There are specific findings that need to be made under state law, and that's within the ordinance before you. And we will, if adopted, need to come back every 30 days to renew those findings until a permanent ordinance can be in place. So we are asking that you adopt the urgency ordinance, introduce the permanent ordinance, and then there's a resolution that actually sets the fees very similar to your last item where you had an ordinance and a resolution setting the fees. This is an ordinance and then setting the fees. And so the urgency ordinance itself does require a 4/5 vote of your council, and that fee would take place immediately. I will also note that under the Housing Accountability Act, it does allow local governments to impose fees after the submission of a preliminary application where necessary to mitigate project impacts. I'm saying this because we do have an application at 56 Madera, the hotel site, that has submitted a preliminary application. And we are asserting that we can charge this impact fee if you do adopt the urgency ordinance tonight. And with that, if you could go to the next slide. So again, our recommendation is that you adopt the urgency ordinance tonight, and that will put these in effect immediately. And then also introduce a permanent ordinance and adopt the resolution. And those will be moving forward to a future, to the December 2nd agenda, I believe. And they would hopefully be adopted by your council on that date. And the permanent ordinance would be in effect 60 days after that. So I'm available for any questions, as well as Ruben and Kushbu.
Okay, just one point of clarification before we go on to questions. Does the urgency ordinance and the permanent ordinance need to be exactly the same, or can we look at a few modulating impacts for the permanent versus the emergency?
I think I'd have to know what you're thinking before I answer that.
But guess.
In general, they don't need to specifically match, but the urgency ordinance on its own, you need to be able to make the findings. And so it does matter what's in that ordinance.
Okay, I'll save it and see if somebody else brings it up. Questions?
I just have a couple. On the urgency ordinance, I know we have to renew it every 30 days, correct? When do you plan on coming back to us with the permanent one, so we're not sitting here a year from now for a whole 12 months, every 30 days?
Yes. So you hopefully will be introducing that permanent ordinance tonight and then adopting the ordinance at your December 2nd meeting. So we will most likely need to come to you with the urgency findings twice. So there's full coverage for that 60 days plus 2 weeks.
Okay.
So.
And I get the intent of the whole ordinance, and it makes sense, right? Because of population trying to add to fire. But does this, in a sense, discourage a developer? Because if you look at 240 Tamil Vista, if that wasn't just being affordable, it would cost them another 400 and some odd thousand. And if it was not affordable, it would cost them another 800,000. So developer, again, you're tacking on cost to a developer.
Absolutely. It's a good question. And that is why we're recommending the 50% reduction for affordable units. So those are the type of units that we really want to be carefully incentivizing, because that is the sector of the housing world that has multiple layers of funding. And by these reductions, it really helps them leverage other funding mechanisms. But in general, any cost to housing is going to increase the likelihood of increased cost for the development itself. But it's really weighing the benefits, because there would still be an impact to public safety. So what we don't want is the entire community to have a diminished public safety when it comes to fire. And so this is asking those units to pay their fair share to be able to maintain that current level of fire safety service.
Right, I get that. But do you see a willingness from developers to move forward with the project when there's that added cost?
Yeah. So there are a lot of laws that govern impact fees. One, to make sure there's a nexus and a need, but also a lot of transparency laws. So we are required to have these nexus studies posted online. If an applicant comes in, we know exactly how much these impact fees will cost their development. It's a very common conversation we have with developers. And so this specific fee is not out of line with what other jurisdictions are requiring. So impact fees are just incredibly common and they're part of doing business in the housing world. So this alone will not, in my opinion, diminish the ability for a developer to come in and make housing possible. It's really just offsetting the impact that their housing will have on our public safety.
Okay, and just rough projection, if all these housing, 500 and some odd units did all get built, how much money are we looking at total impact fees coming in? A rough, I'm not going to hold you a number. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get a rough idea.
It's hard to assess because it's based on square footage, not individual units. So it really depends on what types of projects come in. So you saw that analysis for 240 Tamil Vista. For 56 Madera, we're thinking it's about 500,000 as well, just based on the square footage. And then we don't know beyond that what the next project will be.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 8 of the urgency ordinance, item F, where it says CMFA shall be responsible for providing funds that cover the reduction in funds resulting from this subsection. Why isn't the planning department coming up with those funds?
So are you talking about the reduction for affordable housing?
Yep.
So in general, if this were an impact fee that's imposed by the town and we were to provide a reduction, that cost would be borne by our general fund. In this case, it's Central Marin Fire, and Ruben has worked with us in the city of Larkspur to be able to accommodate that, but it would be Central Marin's budget that would be impacted by that reduction in cost.
It's if I
You're gonna have to have Larkspur subsidizing our big developments.
If I may, so I guess what we're trying to say is, say 56 Madera came in and it wasn't subsidized at 50%, and your full impact fee would be close to $1 million. So instead of collecting $1 million, we're writing off, so to speak, $500,000 to affordable housing and basically saying the Central Marin Fire Authority understands the importance of housing, and more important, affordable housing, that we're willing to now accommodate that without collecting the full amount of impact fee related to affordable housing, if that kind of makes sense.
And I would just add, I mean, it's no different in some ways. We've never had a fee. So all the new units that have been built, we've been doing that over the years with CMFA's budget. You're providing services for additional housing units that are built. So it's the same. I mean, it's not ideal that we haven't had one, but at least it's essentially not, you're not pulling money out of the CMFA budget in order to actually pay for the 50% cost associated with that fee that you're not collecting.
So if we wouldn't have an impact fee in place, our unit hours utilization, so basically how busy our fire units are going to increase. So if you start looking at the national standard of when you should start adding additional fire units, is when your utilization hours per unit or per fire apparatus reaches around 10%. And that was within our last standards of cover document. If you look at the way CMFA is structured and the amount of calls we're running, we're anywhere between 6 to 9% based on the time of day. So we're getting close to that peak time where we may have to start looking at how do we add additional units to now so we can maintain adequate response times and adequate levels of care and fire suppression to the new members of our community, that has been afforded by the existing membership.
Okay, while Jim thinks about it, Rosa, do you have any questions? So I have a couple of questions. There's a big difference between the single family charge of $278 a square foot and then the multi-unit charge of $6 and something per square foot, nearly double. And I'm just wondering, how do we justify that in terms of the fire department's needs? I mean, it seems like the multi-unit buildings would overall be less per square foot than, say, a big single family home where you've got landscape and trees and all the other things that are part of firework. So how do we justify that big difference?
So the Nexus study talks about living square footage space. So how many people can you put in a living unit? And I think the calculation was broken down by what is the expected growth, and then that is then divided by the expected costs of your facilities, and then what should the new development be born to. And I believe Kushbu, if she's on, she may be able to explain the methodology a little bit better on how we got there.
Yeah, I know it can be confusing with the new state law with AB 602, the thought process of having it be proportionally based on square footage. The thought was that, oh, it's going to mean that, smaller units pay less. But the way the impact is calculated is more based on the amount of people residing in a unit. So we look at more from a density standpoint and then kind of what's the average square footage per unit. So yes, even though it looks like that the cost per square foot is higher on multifamily, overall, kind of for the same amount of people, the fee you're paying is in theory lower for a multifamily unit. Because typically, for example, the information we use is something like a single family home might be 2,000 square feet, whereas a multifamily unit might only be 800 or 900 square feet. So kind of on that piece, when you're actually multiplying the fee out, kind of the impact changes depending on the square footage of the unit being considered. So that's the way to consider it, but it really starts with that baseline assumption of the fact that you have a certain amount of population density in a multifamily unit versus a single family unit.
Okay, I'm gonna decide that I'm not gonna completely understand that, but I kind of get it, that because of your averaging how much space an individual takes up, that's why it's higher. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But on my question on the aspect of the credit for affordable housing is kind of twofold. One, I've read that generally 100% affordable units developments are not really in anybody's favor because the financials don't exist to fund it long term into the future, because there's just not as much financial incentive for people to do these things, and so to care for them is harder. So the difference that I was wondering, could we do is for the permanent one, still give some kind of credit for someone who's doing 20% affordable or 25 or 30% affordable, have some kind of sliding scale so that we're encouraging all affordable housing, but maybe not just 100% affordable housing, which I think is kind of not what we want.
That's absolutely within your purview.
Yeah. But can we do that and still approve the emergency ordinance without staying here till 3:00 in the morning and figuring
Yes,
it out?
absolutely.
Well, I like that answer. So questions? Yeah, Eli.
Yeah, a couple quick questions. First of all, just wanted to clarify. So of the three big developments that are either already have applications in or that we're expecting, do I understand that two of them have already kind of gotten in and are not going to be paying this fee if we adopt it? And there's kind of a third one that we're hoping to be able to get some funding for?
One of the projects will not, this fee would not be applied to.
Just one. Okay. Thank you. My other question, Fred kind of asked it, but it's hard to be asked to adopt a fee, in contrast to the last fee that we just discussed, where the purpose is not to raise revenue, the purpose is to, prevent people from doing bad things. This one is about raising revenue. It's hard to vote to adopt a fee whose purpose is to raise revenue without even a broad estimate of how much revenue we're talking about, right? I think when the premise is, well, it's got to bring in some money. It's a fee. It would be helpful, if at least for future versions of this ordinance as it comes to us, as I understand, every 30 days, if we can get at least some kind of range, just so we understand at least the order of magnitude of funding that we're talking about, that would be really helpful. Is that something we can do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I may have to refer to Kushbu because the impact analysis does look at the cost of the equipment and fire services that are necessary over this time span. So I think there is an overall cost that's been identified and then a number of units as far as projection. So perhaps there's a way to back into that, but I'll refer to Kushbu.
Yeah, can we repeat the question? Sorry, I just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Yeah, Kushbu, I was just asking if there's any way that we can get even like a broad range of revenue estimates, from adopting this.
I get what you're saying. Yes, we could probably run some numbers. The reason we don't is because depending on kind of policy decisions that end up being made, sometimes it's hard to kind of estimate what that revenue would be. But yeah, we could. Let me quickly find the estimated number of units that we looked at, so that way I can use the right information to give you that calculation of how much that potential revenue would be. Let me make sure. Okay, it looks like there's roughly a little bit less than 1,000 units. Without knowing how many of those would be multi-family and then the average square footage, that's kind of what we would need. So let me just do some.
Run just even like a minimalist scenario and a maximalist scenario just to kind of like bookend the likely range of possibilities for us. It would be helpful because it's just, even if we've identified what we think the added cost in fire services required is going to be, it's helpful for us to know in considering this fee, are we talking about covering 10% of that or 5% of that, or are we looking at potentially covering the whole thing?
Yeah, so it looks like it'd be roughly between 4.5 to 5.5 million if all the units were charged kind of on the low end, high end averages.
When you say all the units, you said 1,000 units?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, maybe not all of those units would actually be charged. But the overall cost in the study, we show, it really is going to take, and let me just pull the specific Corte Madera information. It's actually, what you need is roughly $32.5 million, but really only proportionately, about a little bit over 5 million would be what should be borne by future growth. So that's kind of where that $5 million comes into play, is that if all of those units were kind of charged, then that's what you're basically saying, that they're covering roughly about 15% of that cost.
That is very helpful.
You're not making new development pay for all of it, because that wouldn't be fair.
Thank you. That's helpful for the purposes of tonight's discussion. And then, like I said, if we can just include in the staff report, even just like broad bookend range, that would be helpful for when this ordinance comes back in the future. Thank you.
And then, I'm sorry, Amy, quick question. I call it Best Western, I think you call it 56 Madera or whatever. Do you know how many square feet that's going to be?
That was our rough analysis based on their preliminary application that you saw on that slide. So
we're looking at 133,680 square feet.
Okay, times 5, you're looking
So
about.
you're looking at 806,000 in impact fee.
Just on that one project.
Just on one.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I take it then to the floor for any comments from the public. Not seeing any. Is there anybody online who would like to talk about this?
No hands raised from our 2 attendees and no emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, so back here for comments, I think we've heard a couple from Eli and Rosa. Jim, anything? I would just like to really see the sort of, I guess, sliding scale is the best way to say it, so that people who are doing 20% affordable, 30% affordable get some kind of break, if we're going to give break to 100%
Yeah, I think the
affordable.
thought process was behind the 100% affordable housing was that there typically isn't any property tax associated with that.
Right.
So we were trying to give them as much break as we can, but yet be able to still collect an impact fee, which would then offset what would typically be collected through a property tax.
Right. But it's
Collect
sort of
through-
an either or
collect-
instead of a
Property
well,
taxes. So 100%
Nonprofit.
affordable. Excuse me?
It's a nonprofit.
Exactly.
To a nonprofit, it's going to be paying property taxes.
No, I said they're not paying property taxes. I said they're paying a fee. I said typically 100% nonprofit or 100% affordable typically it doesn't pay property taxes.
Right.
well, maybe since they're not paying property taxes, they should pay this fee. I mean, they can afford to pay this fee. I don't know.
I hear what you just said. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's what you just said, and that is if they're not paying property tax, should they be paying the full impact fee?
Yeah.
Whatever it is on there. Yeah, okay. Instead,
Or just a way to make it more modulated and nuanced rather than it's all or nothing. If you're 100% affordable, we'll drop the fee by 50%. But if you're trying and you're giving us 25%, we don't give back anything. So I just don't understand how we can, if somebody asks me about that, tell me how I answer. That why are we doing it just for a type of housing that we don't necessarily want to encourage? I mean, I don't know if you're in agreement with that, but the 100% affordable housing projects, if you track them 10, 20 years down the road, they kind of tend to run into maintenance issues and things like that. But
Hey, look at San Clemente.
huh?
San Clemente's
Clemente's a good example.
Yeah.
It's a good example, but there's also not good. There's also
So I'm hearing a swing from not applying a 50% reduction to 100% affordable, but still wanting some reduction for affordable in
something
general.
to encourage.
I will say we are hoping to be consistent with the city of Larkspur. And so they are introducing this ordinance tomorrow night and using a 50% mark. So we will want to continue the conversation on this and make sure that we're applying this consistently. I will disagree with you on the 100% affordable housing units. And you're the decision maker, but there is kind of a differentiation between those projects that are 100% affordable. And for instance, if the Macy's project were to apply tomorrow, they may have 15 to 20% affordable units at not very low or low. It may have a mixture. So we do have an inclusionary ordinance that requires a certain percentage to be affordable. So those are the units that would have a reduction in this fee.
So those would get a reduction already.
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay, I didn't understand that.
So under where you're going, that's the type of project that would benefit from some fee reduction for something other than 100% affordable.
Just to provide an incentive. Although, do you
Right.
think it's not a significant incentive? Is that what you're saying?
I will support any incentive you want to provide affordable housing because it really is that important. The projects that are 100% affordable are very rare. So the one that is entitled, I
It's a
doubt
whole
we will
different
ever
thing.
see another project that is 100% affordable. It's a very different animal, different funding mechanism, different developer.
Right.
We'd be very lucky if we did see that again, but I highly doubt we will.
Mhm.
So the other units that would fall under this potential 50% reduction are those that are being built within market rate projects and that are low or very low. So it's providing an incentive for that project to make sure that their affordability is at low and very low versus
Okay.
moderate.
Is
per
that
se.
written up in here? Because I didn't see it in the,
So it does say low and very low, 100% affordable units. So it's not looking at
oh,
a
so
full
it's not the
project.
development itself. It's just the units themselves.
Yes.
That
So
makes
that-
a big difference.
Yeah, but
I'm
if
good
you'd
with
like to expand that affordability, of course, we will look into that. But this is really trying to incentivize the projects to build the affordable units at that very low and low range.
Sold.
Pat, if I may, can I make a motion to extend our meeting half an hour because we're at 9:30?
Sure.
Thank you.
Second.
You can just all in.
You can do that if you'd like.
Everybody,
It's unanimous.
aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so with that, who else needs to be heard on this? Jim?
Let me see. I can support the urgency ordinance if it does not include section F. And that's just for 30 days while we work on the permanent ordinance. And remember, this is, unless this is wrong, these urgency ordinances, whatever is built starting tomorrow, okay, unless they can get it done in 30 days and we issue the occupancy certificate, these ratios for urgency ordinance will not be what they actually pay. So basically I can support the urgency ordinance so we lock in that we're collecting the fees, and then we can argue about what the fee rebate amounts should be in the permanent ordinance, which will be, 30, 60, 90 days from now.
So are you trying to do this to answer my concerns?
Well, my own concerns,
Okay.
because right now,
I'm confused. What is the section F you're referring to?
basically take out the entire section dealing with the low-income rebates just for the urgency ordinance. Then we come back with a permanent one. We can have time to think about it and analyze it at that time.
Does that affect any projects we have right now?
That's a complicated answer, so it may.
So the only thing I would say, if it's May, you're not sure, I'm fine with the answer, by the way. But if you came back saying no, I'd have a high confidence level. If it's a May, then I think we should leave it in.
The only reason I'm saying that is because the application at 56 Madera, we are not in agreement on the affordability applying to that project. So if we get into, we're in agreement and they do include affordable units, then this would apply to that. But we're not there right now.
I just don't want to lose out on a potential opportunity.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is you would like them to have the low to very low. If this
Vice Mayor
doesn't
Thomas, if you could,
exist- Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you.
If this doesn't exist, then, this is basically a bargaining chip. If we have that, if they put in low and very low, they are entitled to this discount.
Yes, but I will say I'm just trying to play this out. So if we don't have this section in the urgency ordinance, someone were to apply, and then later it would apply, for instance, or whatever the council decides, I think we could craft that ordinance in a way where it could benefit the project in a way. And yeah, so we may want to ask our assistant town attorney as well, her thoughts on that. But I think we could make it work for the urgency ordinances where I'm going, but it wouldn't include an incentive. So it may alter the type of projects that we get in within this interim
Within
period
30
if
days.
people were to apply during this period.
You guys, I am concerned. Look, we've got to fund the fire services that we need. There's no question about that. But I am concerned about, the way that fees like this could discourage the creation of housing at all levels of affordability, especially affordable housing. So I certainly do not want to see the discount for affordable housing reduced. So I'd like to go ahead and just call the question and introduce ordinance number 1054 as written. And we can always revisit this discussion down the road if need be, but especially in light of the doubts that you just raised about whether we might, miss out on revenue or miss out on a good project as a result of that section not being in there, I'm going to make this motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second,
which ordinance is he moving?
The urgency ordinance.
as is.
1051. You said 1054, I believe.
1054. Yeah, that's
1054 is the number for the ordinance that's intended to be permanent. 1051
Oh,
is the number for the urgency ordinance.
oh, excuse me. Oh, Okay, my apologies. So let me amend my motion to introduce ordinance number 1051. Thank you.
And is there a second?
Second.
Before you call for vote, I just have one quick comment. Going forward, when we get staff reports, when we have to approve these projects from council level, I would like to see a section there that says fiscal impact that would list out the fees, and not just the fees, but I know like on 56 Madera, we may be losing TOT. You know, some of these projects we're not getting property tax on, you know, could affect sales tax. I would just like to see a section in the report that addresses fiscal impact.
I understand why you're asking that, but I think in this case, it would be very speculative.
No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying going forward, when these larger projects come to us for approval.
see. Yes,
At that
absolutely.
point, yeah, I'm not asking that. At that point in time, I'd like to see a section, again, fiscal impact, because we're charging these fees. I have no idea what we're charging, how much. And again, with the TOT, sales tax, property tax, I just
Yeah.
want to get an idea how much it's affecting our budget or fiscally. I mean, we may not be able to stop it, but we need to be more proactive so we're aware of it.
I think that's an excellent point, and we can also delineate all the impact fees and what the project would be paying. Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
May I just ask about the motion? Is it also to adopt the development impact report as the town's nexus study? That is the item number 1 combines adopting the development impact report with adopting the urgency
So
ordinance.
1051 and
But of course.
1054.
What she just
And
said.
1054 in unison with one motion. That's okay to do? One motion for both?
So the motion that I have,
Oh, okay.
so that would be
And then go
to
to number
adopt the
2.
development impact report as a town's nexus study for the fire protection impact fee, and adopt ordinance number 1051, amending the Corte Madera Municipal Code, and so on and so forth.
Got it.
Yeah, I didn't even see there's a third item down here, a
Yes,
resolution.
there's
Oh my good.
Okay, so we confirming with you, Councilmember Beckman, that that's correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then seconded by
Second,
Vice
yeah.
Mayor Thomas. So I'll go ahead and call the vote. Councilmember Andrews,
Come back to me.
okay. Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio,
Yes.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yeah.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, then on point number 2, introducing ordinance number 1054 and the nexus.
I move we
Plan
table
with
it till a later date.
I will note that it is, if it's in the interest to have this ordinance in place before the
Tracking.
urgency ordinance expires, we can only keep an urgency ordinance alive for 90 days, I believe. So there would be a timing issue. So if there is something that you would like to see in this one, we can make that change tonight and bring it back to you on December 2nd, if that's something you're willing to talk through tonight.
I want more time to think about it because I got blindsided by this when it came out in the Friday report. So
Well, I would like to move that we go ahead and approve this first reading of this ordinance so that we keep them tracking together. But do I have a second?
I will second the motion with apologies to Councilmember
Yeah,
Andrews.
Yeah. Mr. Jim.
Okay, and is that to introduce ordinance number 54, adopting the findings, and do you want to read the whole thing? Okay, everything that's listed in under number 2. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Councilmember Andrews,
no,
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
And Jim, I do apologize, but
I
I've
have one
often
more for you,
thought that
but
just
keeping it
because
short. I
I
make a
don't
motion
really
we adopt
understand
resolution
what
number
they
43-2024
do.
25, implementing chapter 3.32A of the CMMC and setting the fire protection impact fee amounts.
Second.
Okay, that was a motion to adopt the resolution. Councilmember Andrews? Councilmember Beckman?
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I know that was a lot of work and a very tight time frame, and based on a realization that we were leaving a lot of money on the table. And I really appreciate the effort made to get us up to the table.
We want to thank you both as a team from the Development Department and the Fire Department. Thank you for your support.
Well, part of my interest in this comes from sitting on that fire council meeting and looking at the price per square foot of new construction for fire stations, and how, because of the condition of our fire stations, we need more than one. So I'm wondering where that money's going to come from. So to me, this is a really good move to get this going. So appreciate it a lot. Okay, that brings us to council reports. And first from our wonderful town manager.
Thank you. Just really quickly, I wanted to let you know, actually, Mike Moriarty, who was here earlier, has been working on putting together a package of our survey results on our newsletter. So I will be giving you a report that he created as part of, I think later this week, in an email, and then we'll try to get that back out to the community as well. It's just in general, good response, and people are generally satisfied with the newsletter. Not that can't be room for improvement, but just I think it was a good baseline from which to move forward with that newsletter. Secondly, I attended the volunteer dinner on last Friday. Just want to thank, obviously, I thank the volunteers. They're great, but also our Park and Rec team and Rebecca just for setting that up. And also Amy and Chris were there. It was great to see other staff there as well. But just want to give my appreciation to our staff, our great staff who attended and supported that event. And of course, our Mayor Ravazio as well. That was excellent. So, and then I also attended on Friday a opening for the landscaping project. I don't know exactly what they're calling it, but the new redesign of the pedestrian areas over at the village. And Monty Stevens, the new general manager over there, had a nice opening with some retailers and others there, just trying to generate some buzz, and had some of our officers over there as well, which was nice to see. So with that, all in my report.
Okay, coming to the council. Does nothing, Jim? Rosa?
I too attended the volunteers dinner, which was delicious and fun. And also yesterday, I attended a meeting with Corte Madera Chamber Board to discuss ways forward. And they'll be coming before us, I guess, the 16th. Yes. So they'll have things to tell us.
Okay, what about down here?
This will be short. At 11:12, I attended an intergenerational center meeting on site. Adam was there and Pat was there. We met with the designer and also those from Age Friendly. So we're getting the design part nailed down. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll say banners should be going up. That'll say coming, hopefully summer of 2026. 11:14, I attended volunteer dinner also. And also on the 14th, early that day, I also attended the village VIP landscape opening. Got a chance to meet some of the corporate people from the mall, and Adam gave a spiel that was really well done. So thanks.
Eli.
Just two. On November 13th, we had a Central Marin Sanitation Agency board meeting. And then on November 17th, we had a Central Marin Sanitation Agency Finance Committee meeting. We were planning a $13 million bond issuance there. And I was able to basically talk us down to only 8.5. And we're going to be saving a lot of money in debt service. So that was a win.
Okay, and aside from all the other things that people mentioned that I did, I'm not going to mention those, but coming up this Thursday, we are doing a special ribbon cutting and celebration of the new bike path on the Corte Madera Larkspur path. Larkspur's Chamber of Commerce is really promoting us heavy duty. We'd love to see the same from Corte Madera. But we're going to have nothing but cakes and nice hot empanadas from Zondas, if you want to come. And our own former Public Works Director, RJ Suko, is coming back and making a appearance. And my goal, just so you know, is to turn RJ into one of those really great Corte Madera volunteers, because he's making so much money building houses that he can come and consult with us anytime. And the only other thing I want to say is I will miss the December 2 meeting, even though it is our reorganizational meeting. That's what happens when you let your millennial children plan vacations and you just smile and nod, because it was a non-refundable and I can't get back without spending a lot of money. So I won't be here. I know you guys will do a great job figuring out the new mayor and the new vice mayor. I am very sorry to miss it. I do want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Adam Wolf, who has managed my learning curve this year so beautifully and so supportively. And I really do appreciate all your patience and support. So thank you all very much. And I think with that, anything for the agenda coming up? All right, then I will adjourn the meeting at 9:45. Kind of late for us, but we did it.